Let's get it, 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Tuesday. Hi, hello, how the heck are you? Hope you're having an outstanding day. Thank you for spending some of your afternoon with us here on 580 Sports Talk. I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is across the table from me. Trenton Craxner is across the glass, our producer engineer. That's the power trio you've got today to bring you 4 hours of sports talk, plus a little overtime, taking you to Royals baseball. Boys in Blue back in action tonight, 6:30 pregame along the Royals Baseball Network, and a 7:10 first pitch as the K, as the Royals began their July schedule with the first of 3 games against the Tampa Bay Rays, against whom the Royals took 2 out of 3 in Tampa back in May. We'll take you up until 6:30, but of course, the regulation time, 4 hours, is going to be jam-packed today. We have so much to get to, and we thank you again for being with us on the show. Whether you are listening on 580 WIBW, listening on our FM translator, 104.9 FM, listening online at 580WIBW.com, or if you're checking out our live video stream, and there are so many ways you can find our video stream. I'm doing kind of a pageant wave right now towards the camera. If anybody can see me do that, you can find our video on our YouTube page. We're at 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Just search 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe to the page. When that number goes up, it makes all of us very happy. We would like you to make number go up if you have not previously made number go up in the past. So subscribe to our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk. You can find today's show live, participate in the live YouTube chat, which is a great way to interact with fellow listeners and, of course, your humble hosts. And watch and listen to back episodes of the program as well. You don't even need to go to YouTube to find the video stream if you don't want. You can find it on the front page of our website, 580WIBW.com. You can also see the video stream on our Twitter. That's 580 Sports Talk on Twitter, and on Facebook, WIBW News on Facebook. You can find the show there and interact with us with comments on Facebook as well. So lots of different ways that you can consume the show. Ways that you can interact with the show include the aforementioned YouTube live chat or the Facebook comments, or you can comment on the Twitter stream as well. We'll see all of those. And, of course, the Top City Metal Supply text line. That's 785-272-9429. 785-272-9429, the Top City Metal Supply text line. We want to hear from you, especially if you are a Big 12 football fan, Wildcats, Jayhawks, anybody else who roots for a Big 12 team or has interest in Big 12 football. Today's going to be a big day of Big 12 football discussion on the program because the preseason media poll is out. The preseason all-league team is out. And boy, do we have some takes for you. So stay tuned for that as we go along. We want to hear your thoughts on that Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. On today's show, we will talk some Royals baseball. We talked yesterday toward the end about what our expectations were for the month of June. In retrospect, did the Royals meet those expectations? Did they have a good enough June? And results inconclusive, frankly. 12-15, not a great month by any measure. They did salvage it with a 5-2 start to this current 10-game homestand, but certainly not the month the Royals would have liked, particularly against some of the lesser lights on their schedule. Well, now we turn the corner to July, in which the Royals play 23 games. Get the big all-star break in the middle. 12 of the 23 are at home. 12 of the 23 are against teams who entered today in last place in their respective divisions. Now, that doesn't tell the whole story because there's a big difference between the last place White Sox and the last place Cubs. Like, the Cubs can see 500. They're not close to 500, but they can see it from where they are. The White Sox and the Rockies, who the Royals play this weekend, not so much. So 12 against last place teams isn't that misleading, but should be honest about what that means from the get-go. So what should we expect from the Royals against this schedule? What do they need to do to make sure that they stay within striking distance of Cleveland, who enters 7 games up on the Royals, 6 games up on Minnesota in the American League Central? We'll talk some Royals baseball on today's show. As I mentioned, lots of Big 12 football to get to today. The Big 12 preseason media poll was released. Kansas State and Kansas, both in the top 4. K-State number 2, KU number 4 in a preseason Big 12 football media poll. I think if I had gone to any KU fan in 2020 and I said, hey, in 2024, Kansas is going to be a preseason top 4 team in the Big 12 media poll in a 16-team Big 12. I don't know what part of that would have felt less plausible to Jayhawk fans at the time. But here they are, ranking 4th out of the 16. K-State, again, 2nd out of the 16. So we have that poll to chew on today. And also the All Big 12 team, the preseason All Big 12 team with preseason awards and the first team honorees. K-State, second best team in the league. 0 preseason All Big 12 players.
Shut out.
Not a single one. Just like last place Arizona State. That's what Arizona State and K-State have in common. 0 All Big 12 first teamers, according to the media's preseason poll. Naturally, I disagree slightly, and I'll explain why. And we will gnaw on those preseason All Big 12 teams a bit later on in the show. Plenty of Jayhawk reaction to get to today from our guy Michael Swain of 5.net, 24/7 Sports. He'll join us for Jayhawk Weekly at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour as well. Plus, we'll talk a little bit of Chiefs. One interesting breakout candidate for the Chiefs for 2024, according to NFL.com's Bucky Brooks. Do they have the right member of the secondary? I might disagree. We'll talk about this particular breakout candidate and maybe some other players we think might be even more primed to break out for the 2024 Chiefs. That's coming up later on the show. Plus, all of the segments you've come to know and love from a Tuesday on 580 Sports Talk. We'll do Random Question Tuesday. We will start a new month of What Is Wrong With You. Again, we crowned a June champion on the first day of July. It'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, that's just one of those. So we will start our month of July, What Is Wrong With You, with 2 new stories today. We'll have headlines, top of the 5 o'clock hour, preview Royals Rays, your texts, your YouTube comments, all that good stuff coming up on today's edition of 580 Sports Talk. But let's start with the boys in blue. Royals and Rays tonight. Again, Royals Baseball Network takes over at 6:30 here on 580 WIBW with the first pitch from the K at 7:10.
A rare week or a rare series where all games are first pitches at 7:10 p.m.
Yeah, all 3 night games. No day games in this series because you can't very well sell tickets to Fireworks Day. July 4th is Thursday. That's a big day to sell tickets. That's a big night to sell tickets.
I mean, you could do a 4:05.
Not really.
6:05.
You could maybe do a 6:05, but no.
5:35.
No, I don't even, depending on how fast the games go now, you could be done by 8.
You know, not 8. You could be done by 9. You could be done before the fireworks are starting. Now that I think about it, I had like traditional baseball in my head when I was thinking about this. I'm like, who would want to go to a baseball game and then they stop it because there's fireworks going off?
Why would they stop it?
Because players couldn't keep going.
Why would they shoot off the fireworks at Kauffman Stadium in the middle of the game?
If there was some nearby. I don't know.
That's right. You haven't been to Kauffman Stadium. There is nothing nearby.
I will be going here in 18 days.
There is nothing nearby. It is not the old neighborhood ballpark, right? Like there's nothing nearby. There's no, like, if they're shooting off fireworks in the neighborhood over by the Fellowship of Christian Athletes building up on the hill, I don't think that distracts anybody one iota. Also, I don't know how legal, I don't know all of the laws. I don't know how legal fireworks are in the Kansas City metro area on the Missouri side. I know that they are. We'll get into this maybe a little bit later on in Random Question Tuesday, but I come from a place where fireworks were not legal. Yeah, and
I mean the little ones were.
Yeah, but like the big ones, like you couldn't buy those in your neighborhood. Okay,
no, could not.
Get ready, buddy, for your first July 4th in the state of Kansas. You are going to think the Battle of Antietam is being contested outside your front door. You like Civil War history, pal? You're going to feel like you're living it.
It's okay. I already have for the past 3 nights.
Oh, that's tough.
It is. It's
that's
good.
Tough.
There's one right. There's a little big stand at the bottom of where my street is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm presuming these teenagers are just going and getting some and then lighting them off at night.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's been every night for the past 3 nights.
I am not looking forward to my first July 4th as a parent of a newborn.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now. I'm gonna. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping for the best, but prepare for the worst, because people around here love their fireworks, man. It's never been like, even when it was obviously verboten in the Denver area, the suburbs where I grew up, but it was never anything like fascinated me. I was never like, man, I want to blow stuff up. I would like to risk blowing off my appendages to celebrate America. Like, that was never a thing that I was really going to ever be hands-on about. Doesn't really appeal to me. I'll let everybody else handle the fireworks. Like, a good fireworks show, I love. Like, the K does a really good fireworks show. Like, Fireworks Fridays is really good. I haven't been to a 4th of July game at the K, but I hear their 4th of July show is really, really good. I think they're going to do like a drone show too with it, some more like light up stuff. That's all great. Let the professionals, leave it to the professionals, is very much my attitude when it comes to fireworks. And there aren't a lot of pros like on my street or on anyone's street, frankly. So,
yes.
But just if you think the last few nights have been, wow, a lot of fireworks, just you wait. Just you wait.
So where my apartment complex is, there's like an outer road, I guess you would say.
Uh-huh.
And then there's one entrance here to the complex. Then there's another entrance here, and then there's an entrance at the top. Well, in order to park where I want to park, I got to go to the very top, even though my apartment's in the middle. And last night I was coming back from dinner, and this dad and a couple kids were launching off firecrackers or something.
Sure.
I don't know how, but there was firecrackers under my car as I was driving over them. And I wanted to stop and proceed to use expletives, but I did not.
Yeah. I could see that being
very frustrating.
A little harrowing. Yeah. To be driving over possibly lit fireworks. Not what you want.
Also, it was 7:00 at night.
Yeah. It's not too early. I'm just going to tell you, like, I was saying, like, you need to play a night game on July 4th so you get the full effect of the fireworks show. People don't wait. People do not wait.
Yeah.
So
clearly.
There will be fireworks on Thursday. That is why the Thursday game is a night game in this Tampa Bay series. It concludes the 10-game homestand and concludes games at the K prior to the All-Star break, because the Royals head out for an 8-game road trip after that. 3 in the Mile High City against the Colorado Rockies, last place in the National League West. Then an off day, then 2 at St. Louis, then another off day, and then 3 games at Boston. And that's going to be a really pivotal series, as Boston has played well of late, and they are the team nipping at Kansas City's heels for one of the final wild card spots in the American League. Then you have your All-Star break, and out of the All-Star break, a 9-game homestand for the Royals, including 3 against the White Sox, 3 against the Diamondbacks, and 3 against the Cubs. After that, the month concludes cleanly with 3 games in Chicago against the White Sox. So again, that's 23 games. That's 12 at home. That's 12 against last place teams. 2 questions here. What will be good enough to maintain playoff contention, and what will be needed to continue to push Cleveland? If you enter this month 7 games back, you'd like to get within, like, it'd be great at the end of the month to be within, let's say 4, say within half a week, because so much can happen in 1 week of baseball. If you can make up 3 games in the course of July, I think the Royals might be pretty happy with that outcome. I think 500 ball will be sufficient to maintain their spot in the wild card, depending on which of those games they win and which of those games they lose. Like, if they play 500 ball, they get swept at Boston. That's not great. That's not what you want.
I think they have 25 games in the month of June.
23.
23.
I just said that. Yeah, 23.
Oh, sorry, I was miscounting.
It's 23. Unless I'm bad at math. 7 3-game series is 21 plus the 2 against St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20.
So if they can win 12 games.
12 and 11, yeah, that probably keeps them right where they want to be in terms of their playoff positioning. Right now,
they could win as many as 16.
16 is your maximum.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could sweep the White Sox one time.
Sure.
And take 2 out of 3 the next time. So that's 5 out of 6.
All right, 5 wins against the White Sox. I think that is entirely reasonable. They have dominated the White Sox. I expect after the All-Star break too, for some of these teams to start to look a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if the Cubs and the White Sox look different. Now, the Cubs
especially because of where that series is, like the time, like where it falls on the calendar. It's right before the deadline.
Right before the deadline. Now, the Cubs are in an interesting spot because they're in last place in the Central, but they're only 5 out of the wild card. So, like, if the Cubs play well before the All-Star break, they might be buyers and not sellers. But if they struggle prior to the break, maybe that Cubs roster does look a little bit different. Maybe they move some guys, and maybe that's a very different looking roster. The White Sox absolutely will be a different looking roster. That could be, and you could play that final series of the month against them, and they could be without their closer, Michael Kopech. They could be without their leadoff hitter, Tommy Pham. They could be without their ace, Garrett Crochet. If somebody makes them a big offer and blows them away and trades for the league strikeout leader, that should be 5 wins. I think if you're the Royals, you have to look at that as we got to get 5. So, okay, that would mean
I have seven wins between the two White Sox series and your Colorado Rockies series. I have at least 7 wins.
So you think they go to Denver and win 2? I don't know. Rockies are dangerous at home. No, they are not dangerous at home. They are not dangerous in any way. They are dangerous to my mental health and dangerous in no other way.
I think they split against St. Louis.
Okay.
1-1. 2 games. Mm-hmm. Boston. Boston's such an interesting team because they're kind of good, kind of bad, kind of good, kind of bad, but they're going to be at home. So
that's the statement series of the month. Like, that's the one of all. Like, last month you looked at June and said, okay, the most important games on the schedule here are the Cleveland games. Like, the most important 7 games of the schedule are the 7 against Cleveland, and those are the ones those are kind of like the non-negotiables. Shout out to the Bear. These are the non-negotiables. These are the games we have to play well in if we want to keep fighting for a playoff spot, keep fighting in the American League Central. And the Royals did. They went 5 and they were 4-2 rather, in what ended up being just 6 games because you had the rain out.
The Sox aren't great at home though.
This month it's the Boston series.
Yeah, they're not great at home though. They're 20-23 and 24-16 on the road.
Interesting. They've been a better road team because Fenway Park's one of those parks you can build to.
Oh yeah,
it's very specific. Friendly to right-handed power, hostile to left-handed power. Like, you can build to your ballpark at Fenway in a way that you can't build to every ballpark the same way. So that's interesting. They have a losing record at home this year, but that's the series. Like, that's the one you circle this month, and maybe to a lesser extent the Tampa Bay series. This one that starts tonight as well. Because
Tampa, again, an interesting team as well because they're 42-42, but they're getting better of late. They're 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah, they've played better ball. They really struggled out of the gate, and what we're starting to see from them is some of their marquee guys are starting to get going. Like, Randy Rosarena didn't hit a lick for the first 2 months. He was in a deep funk first time these two teams played. He had a terrific June and has almost gotten all the way back to league average offensive production. That's been pretty big for them. They're not getting any healthier pitching wise, but they might yet in the second half. And if they do, that's a team that could potentially make a run. So, yeah, if you're the Royals, you want to win the season series against Tampa Bay. You want to get 2 out of 3, go 4-2 against Tampa Bay, and give yourself a chance to take care of business against a team that you're fighting for a playoff spot against. So those are and it's
the back part of your rotation. If you're the Royals,
it's 3, 4, 5 going this week. Singer and Waka and Marsh,
which haven't been bad.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's not. There are a lot of teams with some playoff aspirations who would like to have a 3, 4, 5 as good as Singer, Waka, and Marsh. But those are the 6 games. What I've been trying to say. Those are the 6 games this month, and they all come before the break. Where that's where you want to get. You want to get 4 wins. You want to get both of those series. And if you get 4 wins in that stretch, you get 5 of 6 against the White Sox. You take a series against, let's say, at Colorado versus the Cubs and at St. Louis. That is 8 games there. Let's say, call that a split. Call that 4-4. What are we working with then? 4 and 4 is 8 and 5 is 13. Then if you take the D-back series, there's 15 wins. So you think 16's the ceiling, and that would maybe be a series win at Colorado or a series win against the Cubs or a sweep of St. Louis. That, I think, is a reasonable ceiling for this stretch of play. Let's bring in producer-engineer Trenton Kraxner. Certified Royals fan, always gets great immaculate grid scores when the Royals are one of the teams. Trenton, what say you? What do you think is a reasonable month to expect for the Royals, and what do you think is the kind of month that keeps them in the AL Central race?
Well, I would agree with what you guys have said about 14, 15 wins, because this is a really easy month. Let's be honest. I mean, you get six of almost the fourth year games this month are against the White Sox, and then you add in the Rockies, and you're lining up your top three guys this weekend. Reagan's Lugo, Singer.
So many strikeouts.
Like that's
oh my God, the Rockies are going to strike out so many times. Oh my God.
So you're saying almost half of your schedule is this month is against teams in last place.
Yeah,
like the Cubs are in last place.
Over half, yeah, because the Cubs right now they're only a half a game out of fourth place, but still last place is last place.
They're not as brutal as the Rockies and White Sox, though.
No,
you got to win at least 7. You got to go 7-2, I would say, against those guys. But I think 15 wins would be really good for the month. If you go 6-5 before the All-Star break, right here, because you're playing 8 on the road, that puts you at 53-44. And I think that's in a good spot, at least in the wild card race.
And I think you're gonna I feel like in the wild card race, the highest you're gonna be is 2.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to catch Baltimore, New York.
Yeah,
those are
whoever's
the teams,
not the division winner over there, then
right. That's right now a pretty substantial edge in the wild card hunt. I think it's a 6-game edge over Minnesota. Yeah. They're both teams 6 games up over Minnesota.
Which you could argue being the last wild card team's better, because then you're playing at Seattle instead of having to play at Baltimore or New York.
This is true.
Because the Mariners have the worst batting average of all of baseball. They're hitting like 216 as a team.
The hitless wonders.
Yeah. So, and they might get caught by the Astros anyway.
Yeah.
So I think you got to win at least 14 or 15 this month to contend in the Central, because look at the back half of Cleveland's schedule after the break. Some of those teams that they're playing.
Yeah, Cleveland out of the break. So I pulled the schedules for both Cleveland and Minnesota. Cleveland opens tonight 3 against the White Sox at home. Then they've got 3 against San Francisco, who's run very hot and cold. 4 at Detroit, 3 at Tampa Bay. So Cleveland doesn't have another off day between now and the break. Then after the All-Star break, they've got 3 against San Diego, who's played well of late. 4 more against Detroit at home. Detroit is going to factor very heavily into the Central race this month, that's for sure. Then quick little 5-game road trip for Cleveland to wrap up the month. 3 games at Philadelphia, one of the best teams in the National League. And then 2 more at Detroit. They play Detroit 10 times this month.
Wow.
Probably a good time to catch Detroit. Speaking of teams that might look a little different by the time post All-Star break rolls around, as they have played their way out of any realistic playoff hopes. Minnesota, for their part, 3 at home against Detroit, 3 at home against Houston, 3 at the White Sox, 3 at San Francisco. Then after the break, 2 at home against Milwaukee, 3 at home against Philly, 3 at Detroit, and 3 at the Mets.
I'll tell you what, though, back to the Royals here real quick. If they're able to get 16 wins this month, you know where that would put them?
It would put them at 63 wins. They would avoid 100 losses. They would officially be unable to lose 100 games.
Not only that, they could have a not so great August, like a 500 or worse August, and still be in a decent position.
Yeah, it's like we've talked about from the very beginning,
yeah.
Just trying to bank wins and make sure you stay ahead of the competition. Right now, it's a 1.5 game lead in the wild card standings over Boston, and 3 games against Boston. I think 14-15 is a good month if they go 14-9, even 13-10. If I could pick the 13 and say they went 4-2 against Tampa Bay and Boston and help themselves out in that regard in the wild card chase, because those are. You get to this point in the season, those are 2-game games, so to speak, in the standings. Yeah. You pick up a game and the other team drops a game. So
if you get to 60 wins before August 1st, I'm still feeling comfortable about this season.
I think so too. I mean, look, this team won 56 games last year, and
I mean they're within people's expectations.
Yes,
everyone's
100%. So that's what it looks like for July. Again, 23 games. The majority are at home, and the majority, again, are against last-place teams. What is your expectation for the Royals in July? How many wins out of those 23 games do you think are possible for this Royals team? And how many do you think they need to get for you to feel like they can really make a run in the final 2 months to win the American League Central? Weigh in on the Top City Metal Supply text line. That's 785-272-9429, and in the YouTube live chat as well. We're going to take our first break here in the program. When we come back, the future of the Royals in a literal sense. We're going to talk about the futures game. 2 Royals prospects selected to participate the Sunday before the All-Star game, and we'll tell you who they are next here on 580 Sports Talk. It's 2:34 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Spencer Trenton with you on this Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for starting your afternoon with us. Lots of Big 12 football talk coming up later on in the show. Reaction to the preseason media poll and all Big 12 teams. And we'll talk to Michael Swain of Fog.net coming up at 4:35 for Jayhawk Weekly. But first, some thoughts on fireworks. I don't know if you're aware of this, Spencer, but we got a town in Kansas that calls itself Boomtown, USA. John on the YouTube comment says, drive on over to Wamego, Spencer. It's a solid 45 minutes of backup, Terry. Familiar with the viral video. Yeah, Boomtown, USA. They do, I am told, a whale of a show. I've never been out to see it myself, but if you are curious, that would be...
Does the city of Topeka do it?
I'm sure there are fireworks shows in Topeka. I just don't know who puts them on. A lot of them, like, honestly, I remember I might have been my first or second July 4th living in Topeka, and was over at our old pal, our former co-host Jake LeBon's house. He lives in east of Topeka. He lives over in Tecumseh, and I was over at his house, and I remember driving home on the over I-70, because I lived in West Topeka at the time, still do, and seeing all the fireworks from all directions. It was like, that was enough of a fireworks show. Like, I didn't need to go to one place in particular and see one. But
when I used to live out in West Virginia, and I would be going back to Virginia or from Virginia back to West Virginia after spending some time with my family, because I had to work the next day or whatever, you'd just go through the mountains and you could just see like 30. It was pretty cool.
So if
just
you
see 30 different ones.
So if you like blue,
you could see DCs.
Oh wow!
When you get to the top of the mountain.
Oh sure, I can believe that.
Yeah.
So if you like blues music, Spencer, and a texter from the 785 on the Top City Mel Supply text line points us towards the Spirit of Kansas Blues Festival, Lake Shawnee's fireworks show at the end of the Spirit of Kansas Blues Festival.
Barbara says as well, Lake Shawnee,
July 4th. Yeah, that's going to be the big show.
I did just find out that all these people in my neighborhood are breaking the law.
Yes. No, there are laws that say this is when you can legally shoot off fireworks.
July 3rd and 4th.
Widely ignored. I don't think any law I have never seen a law more flagrantly ignored outside of all of the underage drinking that went on at the frat houses at DePauw University when I was in college.
Any university, that is.
Any university, but like the one I went to is the one I can speak to. I'm sure everybody else follows the rules though.
I just thought I looked up City of Topeka fireworks trying to find where they would be.
Yep.
And the very first thing is an article from the Topeka Capital Journal saying they will allow fireworks to be sold on a 6-day period and discharged over a 2-day period that was approved in 2018. And I just thought it was hilarious. Because no one follows that.
Spirit of Kansas Blues Festival, Thursday, 11 a.m., 8 p.m., and then the great big fireworks show after that. So that's some tips for the newcomer to the Sunflower State and the capital city to perhaps see some fireworks. Back to baseball for a moment. The Futures game rosters were announced earlier, or actually last night, I think, maybe earlier today.
I think this morning.
Might have been this morning. Do you watch Futures game?
I have in the past a little bit.
I used to really like the Futures game, and then they cheapened it. They turned it into a 7-inning game. Used to be a 9-inning game. What it is
when did they do that?
I think in 21.
Okay, I haven't watched since 2021 then.
I think that was when they started to do this. So the Futures game is a prospect showcase. Some of the top prospects in all of baseball, the American and the National League, play a 7-inning game against each other. There is also going to be a skills showcase this year for the first time following the contest. 8 players, 4 per league, participating in 3 rounds of a hitting contest, scoring points by hitting targets in the first round, including bunts, displaying their ability to hit to all fields in the second round, and hitting balls over the fence in the third round. That's just hitting as a skill. What about like running? What about throwing? What about other skills? Like what about, I don't know, you can do more with that than just hitting. I would own the bunting competition, though. Yeah. I'll tell you what, they DH for me my last 2 years of high school. I did not have an official varsity at bat in my high school career. I did not have a varsity at bat, but I can tell you this: I can get down a bunt.
Did you know that
I flat out bunt?
Some people have been selected for the roster for only the showcase.
Yeah, there are a couple who are only doing the showcase, but that is not the case for the 2 Royals who were selected to the American League roster, a pair of the club's top 10 prospects, according to MLB Pipeline. Right-handed pitcher Ben Caderna and outfielder Gavin Cross. I'll handle Cross first because we've talked about him and how his prospect light was, shall we say, rather dimmed by the year he struggled through back in 2023 when he was dealing with a version of like a tick-borne disease that sapped him of strength. He played just 96 games, hit just 203. This year, he has bounced back at AAA Northwest Arkansas, where he's still young for the league at 23, hitting 279 with a 798 OPS, 14 doubles, 8 home runs, 15 stolen bases, showing off the power speed combo that got him drafted 9th overall out of Virginia Tech and made him at one point a top 100 prospect. He was as high as number 62 on the MLB Pipeline top 100 rankings prior to the 2023 season. Has not risen back onto those lists, but certainly back in the conversation as far as potential future pieces of the Royals. Ben Caderna is, of course, a local boy to the state of Kansas. Blue Valley Southwest High School was a second-round pick of the Royals back in 2021. He's really young for high A, just 21 years old, but having a fine year in Quad Cities. A 314 earned run average in 12 starts, 63 innings, 64 strikeouts, just 26 walks, and less than 1 home run allowed per 9 innings. So Ben Caderna
game on Sunday.
Is that right?
I believe so. And I was looking this up earlier for for something, and let me pop it out here. Yeah, he had
Six
his best
shutout
game
innings
Sunday.
6 shutout innings with 9 punch outs and no walks against the
3 base runners
against Peoria on June 30th. So exciting for both of those guys, and an opportunity if you are a Royals fan to get an early look at a couple of potential future pieces of the Royals' future. Ben Caderna and Gavin Cross making the futures game. I just hate that they made it 7 innings. Like, play a real baseball game. I've said this on this show, and I'll say it again. Rob Manfred's lasting legacy as a commissioner of Major League Baseball, whenever it is that he finally leaves office, and again, not a moment too soon, Rob Manfred's lasting legacy is that there was less baseball after he left than there was when he inherited. There was less of it. The minor leagues are smaller, games are shorter, extra innings are shorter because you have the stupidest rule in the history of sports, the ghost runner. There were 7-inning double headers in the COVID year. Less baseball. What a legacy to have. You were the commissioner of baseball, and when you left your post, there was less baseball than there was before. You didn't grow the game, you shrunk the game.
Yeah.
What one hell of a legacy for Rob Manfred. I'm gonna get mad and yell.
I was watching an extra inning game last night because the Nats went to extras on James Wood's debut, and I was just mad. Every
time I hate the ghost runner. Every time it drives me nuts.
It literally in the majors, it's a free run most of the time, unless the guy you have pitching is going to strike everyone out.
It should be a free run. It's not always, but it should be. It feels like it should be. But yeah, most games end and somebody gets the run across in the 10th typically. How many did your Nats give up in the 10th last night? Was it 6?
Oh, it was so bad. So bad. Hunter Harvey. You don't want him.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Nobody wants them on the trade block.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there was a major international sporting event at Arrowhead Stadium last night. The United States men's national soccer team, they're bad. We're going to talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. One of the best decisions I've ever made personally as a sports fan is not investing emotionally in the fortunes of the United States men's national soccer team. I
agree with you there.
I know a good many people who have.
Yes.
Now, this is at least my chair today is a pro soccer chair. I am not here to knock the beautiful game. In fact, I quite enjoy it. I like to watch soccer. I enjoy watching the Premier League on Saturday mornings. I have enjoyed when I can watching the Kansas City Current lighting up the NWSL this year. They're the league's best team. I like soccer. This is not to sit here and to bash the beautiful game. But I've never gotten into the USMNT as they're known. And I think a lot of people really get into them because, let's face it, Team USA, just broadly speaking, we're not the underdog in any sport. Not really. I mean, there are some sports that are not native to the United States that we are underdogs, like cricket. Like a couple weeks ago, in a major national cricket competition, the United States beat Pakistan. And that was a big deal because
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the United States it's just some guys, and Pakistan, that's their game. That's what they do. And we beat them. We beat them in cricket. But broadly speaking, the sports that are widely played and viewed in the United States, Team USA is not the underdog. Maybe Team USA hockey is a little bit of an underdog against Team Canada, but Team USA basketball, gold medal or bust. Team USA baseball, we don't play second fiddle to anybody. Team USA in the Olympics, we expect to win the most gold medals. Team USA, typically not the underdog. Men's soccer, different deal. And a different deal even from women's soccer, where the United States has been a dominant force since the late 90s, because we were a country that actually invested in women's sports, where a lot of the other developed countries where soccer is the primary sport just weren't interested in women's soccer for the better part of 20 years. Now that they're invested in it, you can see the United States starting to fall behind just a little bit. That head start no longer valid. So the United States men's national team, they are the underdog. That being said, I don't think it should ever be a scenario where the United States can't beat Panama and Uruguay at soccer. We're the United States. They're Uruguay. They're Panama. And the United States lost to both of those teams, which means the United States is not continuing on in the Copa America competition. They are eliminated in the group stage. They lost last night to Uruguay 1-0. Very funny. Couple of funny things about it. Number one, the game was at Arrowhead Stadium, and apparently the regular camera was not in action for the first 35 minutes of the match. They were using the all 22 camera at the very top of the press box at Arrowhead, so the players all look like ants on television. Yeah. And then very abruptly, 36 minutes in, they were like, oh, yep, here's the regular camera. Here's the right one. Enjoy. Fox had no control over that, for what it's worth. People were mad at Fox. It wasn't really a Fox thing. That was a CONMEBOL thing. That was the governing body puts on the broadcast. But the United States lost the match. They needed to win, or they needed Panama to draw Bolivia and also to draw Uruguay. And there was a moment in the second half where, over in the other match, which was happening at the same time, so you don't have any shenanigans or whatever, Bolivia scored a goal to tie Panama, and USMNT manager Greg Berhalter frantically signaled to his players with two index fingers out, say, the other game is tied. The other game is 1-1. A millisecond later, Uruguay scored. And the goal probably shouldn't have counted. It looked like it was offsides to me. I've seen the offside. Sorry. I've seen the replay. Looked offside. Looked like maybe the official was bad at his job last night. I don't care, man. Win a game you're supposed to win. I know that we are supposed to be in a golden generation of United States men's soccer talent. All of these guys play in the major European leagues now, the Premier League or Spain's number one league, Italy's number one league. All of these guys are playing with the big boys. So the expectation is maybe the United States should be good at soccer now. And they're not. We're not. I never want to hear ever again somebody tell me the United States is going to win a World Cup in our lifetimes. No, No, we're not. The United States is what it is in soccer. We've surpassed Mexico. That's great. I like beating Mexico. Dos a cero all day, baby. That's super. I really get the red, white, and blue on when we play Mexico. I like to beat those guys. That's a rivalry. I like rivalries. I like winning rivalries. I'll invest in that. But don't tell me the U.S. MNT is ever going to win a World Cup. It's not happening. It's not happening. That's not the kind of soccer nation that we are ever going to be. It's not happening. And they can fire the manager, Greg Berhalter, and they probably will. Tyler in the YouTube live chat says coach needs to go. He will.
I saw a tweet yesterday that somebody said he should be fired in the locker room.
Like they could have fired him on the field.
Yeah.
And that would have been sufficient. But I don't see it. I don't see enough. I don't watch their matches and think, oh man, it's the manager. He's playing the wrong guys, or he's playing the wrong system, or he's playing the wrong tactics. They just don't win. Under Greg Berhalter, the only team that they have beaten that is a top 20 team worldwide is Mexico. They get up for the Mexico game and they beat Mexico, and that's great. Beat anyone else. Beat Uruguay. Beat Panama. Don't get sent off, Tim Weah, 20 minutes into the Panama match, so you got to play a man down the whole game and you lose. This tournament is set up for the United States to be successful. The United States should bully teams in the Copa America, like with exceptions. Like they maybe shouldn't bully like Brazil, Argentina, like those countries. Like I don't expect the United States to ever be that good, but these are the kinds of competitions the United States should be playing like deep into and really contending in, and they don't. And I just don't believe that the level of talent is any higher than it was like a decade and a half ago when we had like Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore and those guys. Like, I don't think these guys are any better than those guys. I really don't. I know they all play in Europe now, but I don't see it. I don't see it. And I don't think firing the manager is going to fix anything. I just think the United States is what it is as a soccer nation, which is like objectively decent, but no more than that. And never, ever, ever going to be a player on the world stage. Never, ever, ever going to win a World Cup. It's not going to happen. And that's okay. Like, I'm not telling people, you know, you're wrong for being emotionally invested or rooting for the United States men's national team. But games like last night remind me why I'm glad I don't.
Yeah.
Because I only have room in my heart for one team that I know isn't going to win anything. And that's my favorite baseball team. I've only got room in my heart for one hopeless cause. And when it comes to competing on a national stage, standing toe-to-toe with Germany and Brazil and Argentina and Spain, and I know the United States has at varying points in their history beaten those teams in friendlies or beaten those teams in tournaments or whatever. Broadly speaking, that is just not the weight class that United States soccer is ever going to be in. The United States men's soccer is just never going to get there. It's not going to happen. I think Barbara nails it. When you see Lionel Messi play against teams in MLS on the YouTube chat, Barbara says, you notice the lack of high talent in the United States players. It's just not a good enough soccer. We're not a good enough soccer nation. And I know there are probably people listening saying, well, thank God. Thank God we're never going to be a good enough soccer nation. There are still soccer haters out there. The sport will never entirely win over the country. I know. You should talk to my dad about it sometimes. You should talk to my dad about soccer, see how he feels sometimes. But if you are invested, I'm not telling you that's wrong. I'm not telling you it's wrong to cheer on the United States. I'm just telling you that they're going to always be underdog. And it's never, like I've been hearing for the better part of the last 2 decades, the United States will win a World Cup in my lifetime. Unless you are 12 years old or younger, I don't want to hear you say that ever again. That's just how I feel. We're going to talk some American football in the 3 o'clock hour. The preseason Big 12 media poll is out. K-State second, KU fourth. We got some bones to pick. We'll talk some Chiefs, and we'll do Random Question Tuesday coming up live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio in the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 2 on this Tuesday afternoon. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, Trenton Craxner, the three-man power trio, bringing you the program on this soon-to-be wet Tuesday afternoon. By all accounts, there is some kind of system moving into the area, and we expect there to be some rain. We do expect the possibility that some of the storms in the area could become severe, and if indeed they do, keep it here on 580 WIBW. We'll fill you in on all of those details as we go along here on 580 Sports Talk. Appreciate you.
It does appear, though, you'll be able to get home with your drive home listening to us. It doesn't appear to be starting until after 8.
Okay. Not what I saw, but
we're seeing two different things then.
Yes. Yeah, it appears that we are. But anyhow, neither here nor there. Just keep it locked here. We'll keep you updated on the on any weather developments that are relevant to our listeners here on 580 WIBW. Appreciate you listening to 580 Sports Talk, spending some of your Tuesday afternoon with us, whether you're tuning in on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online worldwide at 580WIBW.com, or watching the video stream. We are streaming our video on Facebook, WIBW News, on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk, and of course, on our YouTube page. You can search 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. You find us there. All of our live and archive video content lives there. Subscribe to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. And then when you go to youtube.com and we're live, or we're about to go live, or we've put together some video, it will pop right up to the top of your page. So make us one of your subscriptions on YouTube, won't you? And if you are watching us on video, feel free to chime in on the live chat. Appreciate everybody who does that throughout the program today on YouTube. Can also hit us up on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the Top City Metal Supply number. Again, that is 785-272-9429, the Top City Metal Supply text line. Still to come on the show today. Which Chief does NFL.com Bucky Brooks think is a breakout candidate for 2024? We'll also talk to Michael Swain of Fog.net for Jayhawk Weekly. That's coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. And our first What is Wrong with You for the month of July coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. But we start the 3 o'clock hour today. First of all, did you know today is something like a holiday, Spencer? Not like July 4th is like an actual literal holiday, but today is something like a holiday for me personally. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Today is a holiday for me personally, because today is the day that I got my hands on the Phil Steele College Football Preview Magazine. Jam-packed.
Now I get it.
With information, folks. This is the book the experts cannot do without. I am moved near to an emotional state every time I am able to purchase my copy of the Phil Steele College Football Preview.
How much does that run you now?
Oh, it's $20.
$20
plus tax.
Has it always been 20?
No. I think when I started buying it back in my high school days, it was probably around $14. But it's $19.99 now. Take it or leave it. I would suggest people take it. If you like college football at all, this is the magazine. This is the one. This is the one to get. I cannot recommend it more highly. You can only buy it at your local Barnes & Noble. They are the exclusive. I think Books A Million too, but we don't have one of those here. We have a Barnes & Noble though. That's last year's.
Yeah, you have last year's in here too.
Yes, I think that was Jake LeBon's copy. I texted Jake as I always do. I took a picture of it and I texted Jake. It says it's that time. And he says this will be the first time in 17 years he doesn't buy one.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's a streak broken. I have been buying my copy of the Phil Steele Guide since like 2003. I used to buy it because it was the only place to get the full rosters. So then you could manually input them into the NCAA football video game. We live in very different times. Let's just say that.
Yeah, we do.
But I say this is like a holiday for me because it feels like it is officially the start of the college football season when I have the occasion to get my hands on the Phil Steele magazine. And this year, if you go buy it at the Barnes & Noble just down the hill from us here in Topeka, the copy of the magazine has both a Jayhawk and a Wildcat on the front, which I think is fairly unprecedented in the history of these college football previews. DJ Giddens and Jalen Daniels live in color on the cover of the magazine. And also,
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Do they do them by conference and every conference?
Regional
conferences, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a regional cover. They've got a Texas cover. They've got a Midwest or North cover where you've got like Colston Loveland of Michigan and Howard Cross and Notre Dame. Nebraska's on that one. You have a national cover that just goes out to places where maybe there is no natural fit, where you've got like players from Texas and Georgia and Penn State, what have you. This is the like southwest, Midwest cover that we've got Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, KU, K-State on this year's
That's
cover.
cool.
Anyway,
I didn't know they did that.
it is a nice and happy coincidence that I get this in my hand on the very day that the Big 12 Conference releases the preseason Big 12 media poll and preseason All Big 12 team. Now, we're going to talk about the All Big 12 team in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll go through that and we'll tell you which Kansas players are honored and which Kansas State players are honored. And that's not going to take us very long because there aren't any K-State players on the preseason All Big 12 team, which makes it all the more, I guess, impressive that Kansas State, according to the same media that doesn't think they have a first team all-conference player to start the season, voted them second in the Big 12 preseason media poll. And a close second, it should be noted, of the 61 first-place votes, which were split among 5 different teams. Utah is at the top of the list with 20 first-place votes. Then you have Kansas State with 19 first-place votes. The teams are separated by only 17 votes or vote points, if you will. The way it works, you get 1 point if you're voted 16th, and you get 16 points if you're voted number 1, and so on and so forth. So K-State and Utah are essentially separated by the length of that one first-place vote. It is a very close poll at the top. K-State, number 2, behind number 1, Utah. After that, if Oklahoma State, number 14, 14 first-place votes, number 3 in the Big 12 preseason media poll. Then Kansas, 5 first-place votes. 5 of the 61 media members who filled out a ballot believe that the Jayhawks can win the Big 12. The basis for that we'll talk about in just a bit. Now, they are a pretty distant fourth when it comes to between them and Utah is a pretty wide gap. It's pretty clear Utah, Kansas State are bunched pretty tight. Then there's a bit of a gap, and there's Oklahoma State. Then there's a similar gap, and it's Kansas 4, Arizona 5, with the remaining 3 first-place votes. Then a huge gap to Iowa State at number 6. Then another big jump down to the teams 7th, 8th, and 9th, West Virginia, UCF, and Texas Tech. Then another big gap, TCU at number 10, and Colorado at number 11. Then another big gap to Baylor and BYU, 12th and 13th, in whatever order you want. They were both tied, it looks like, in the poll. I don't know how that tie was broken, but they each received 215 vote points, Baylor and BYU. Cincinnati very close at number 14, then Houston at 15, and Arizona State bringing up the rear. Again, Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Arizona, the top 5. Iowa State, West Virginia, UCF round out the top half. Then it's Texas Tech, TCU, Colorado, Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, Arizona State. Spencer Dupuis, when you saw this preseason media poll for the first time, what jumped out to you immediately?
The way, like the first place votes, like you got 2 at the top, and then 1 a little bit further down, and then the rest of the top 5 kind of bunched, the 4 and 5 with Kansas and Arizona kind of bunched together between 3 and 5 first place votes. What jumped out to me is there's like distinct tiers in this.
Typically how it works, but yeah, it's always fascinating to see what they are, right?
Yeah.
Like how they consider, like, it looks like there's a very clear 1, 2 and a pretty clear 3, 4, 5.
Which one, the media is agreeing with kind of what we've seen so far from what EA Sports has done, and what we've seen for early playoff predictions, right?
Sure.
Early playoff predictions have Utah in there.
They are, I think, going to be, I mean, not the consensus favorite, but the majority favorite, let's call it.
Yeah.
Among people projecting out the Big 12. Phil Steele, for his part, and like I said, I just got the magazine. I haven't really even cracked it open to look at his projections. But Phil Steele, for his part, has Utah number 1, Kansas State and Oklahoma State 2 and 3. The big departure for him is Iowa State 4th.
Yeah.
So, and Kansas down at number 7. So that is the one thing that that always is interesting about these is the tiers. But the thing that stood out to me is the number of teams that received first place votes. 5 different teams. Now, I haven't covered every Big 12 football season. And as such, I haven't been privy to every preseason Big 12 football media poll. But I can tell you that in recent memory, I can't remember this many teams receiving first place votes. There have always been very clear favorites, 1, 2, maybe 3 teams in a given year who go in and have an opportunity to win the Big 12. For there to be 5 this year, 5 teams of the 16 receiving first place votes, it speaks to what we have been saying about this league pretty much since we knew it was going to be expanding. There is not a traditional blue blood in this league. There is not a traditional powerhouse in this league. There is not maybe a program that enters every year with national championship aspirations in this league. But what there are a bunch of damn good football programs historically and presently a bunch of damn good football teams. And what that's going to create is a frantic race for the top of this league. And what I believe will be the most fun league title race of any of the Power 4 leagues.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there. And I think it's even going to be set. It's Arizona and Kansas State playing a non-con game, right?
Yes, they play a non-conference.
That is going to be like a really fun non-con game because it's not going to count in the conference standings, but whatever team is going to have a higher place in the top 25, probably the college football playoff rankings whenever they come out later on like that. If both teams are in the top 5 in the league, that's good for the matchup. Like I think that's going to be a great matchup overall, and it's a non-con game.
I think that will whet people's appetites.
Yes,
I think is the point you're trying to make here is it will definitely whet the appetite for Big 12 football to have these two teams play what amounts to an exhibition Big 12 game.
Yeah,
obviously it counts like in your overall record, but it doesn't count the Big 12 standings. But with the standalone TV window on a Friday night, look, I hate it.
Yeah.
We've spoken our piece about Friday night college football, but that spotlight, I think, will serve to get people pretty fired up about the level of football that we're going to see in the Big 12 night in, night out. K-State, number 2, 19 first place votes out of the 61. Their schedule, their conference schedule, they play the teams in order that are ranked 13th, that's BYU, 3rd, Oklahoma State, 11th, Colorado, 7th, West Virginia, 4th, Kansas, 15th, Houston, 16th, Arizona State, 14th, Cincinnati. That's a nice pillow soft schedule there in November, leading up to Farmageddon, the final game of the year at Iowa State. That team is 6th in the league. So K-State plays 4 of the other teams in the top half of the poll: West Virginia, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. And that's to say nothing of Arizona, who they play in a non-conference game.
Yeah.
Here's who Kansas plays. And this is, again, in order of when they play them in league competition. West Virginia, 7th. TCU, 10th. Arizona State, 16th. Houston, 15th. K-State, 2nd. Iowa State, 6th. BYU, 13th. Colorado, 11th. Baylor, 12th. So KU in league play plays just 3 of the teams in the top half. compared to 4 of the teams in the top half for Kansas State. And when you're talking about picking a league champion in a league that is no longer a true round robin, RIP One True Champion. I wish I still had my One True Champion shirt. I got it at Big 12 Media Days. I really miss that shirt. I wish I still have it. I miss it very much.
What happened to it?
I outgrew it. Let's just say that. It was a size large. I haven't been a size large in several years. I
thought like
not
maybe,
a comfortable size
I
large.
thought
Let me
maybe
put it that
like
way.
you spilled something on it or ripped or something.
No. It's just it is one of those that just kind of fades out of your rotation, and then you lose it, and you just lose it. So when you're picking a league champion and you don't have the hashtag One True Champion, the scheduling matters, and I think that to me. And I don't say this to diminish the talent level that I think Kansas has, particularly on offense. Like, I think Kansas is going to be really good. But I think the league championship aspirations for Kansas, or the belief that anyone might have that Kansas is a real contender for the Big 12 championship, is centered a lot around their schedule. Like, they don't play the kind of schedule that some of their nearest competitors do. Like, here's who Utah has in league play. I think Baylor is a non-conference game, just like the K-State and Arizona game.
Yeah.
But they've got Oklahoma State, who's 3rd, and Arizona, who's 5th, and Arizona State, who's 16th, and TCU 10th, Houston 15th, BYU 13th, Colorado 11th, Iowa State 6th, and UCF 8th. So again, of the top half of the league, you have UCF, and you have Iowa State, and you have Arizona, and you have Oklahoma State. You're playing 4 of the top half teams again of your 9 on the schedule. And so for Kansas to only have to play 3 of those teams, I think that's a slight edge. I do, and I think that is something that can keep them really in this Big 12 title mix. Let's ask these questions, Spencer. Which team on this list do you think is the most overrated? Like, we can have a quibble swapping a team a spot here and there, but which team on this list do you think is the most overrated?
I don't know. Maybe UCF.
Interesting. Why UCF?
I just feel like they're just in an interesting spot where they are.
Second year in the league. 6-7 last year. Brand new quarterback.
But high hopes. So you never. I don't know. They're like a hard team to rank for me. Is more of not overrated. I don't really see a team that's overrated in here. I think Iowa State is good. I mean, clearly Phil Steele thinks they're going to be good. I think West Virginia is probably going to be right around that spot, to be honest with you. I mean, they're going to take a leap from where they were last year, right? They were projected second to last or something last year, if I remember correctly.
I think that's right. I think so. When I did my top 16, I had West Virginia down a couple of spots. I think the 2 teams that I have the biggest difference on, as far as I don't have them as high, are probably Oklahoma State and Colorado. Oklahoma State, obviously, they've got Ollie Gordon, and we think he's going to make it to opening day. Ollie Gordon got in a little trouble off the field last night. We'll get to that in headlines. But I don't think Alan Bowman is very good. And I think Oklahoma State, and I think this about West Virginia too, I think they punched above their weight a little bit in close games last year. Like, close games to me are sort of the differentiating factor. Like, if you win all your close games, then that puts you over the top. I think about TCU 2 years ago when they went to the playoff. They went to the national championship game. They just won every close game they were in, except, of course, the Big 12 championship game, as K-State fans would like me to remind you. But record in close games means a lot, and it's really hard to replicate it. And for me, West Virginia, they got the rub of the green in close games last year that I don't think they're going to get again this coming year. Oklahoma State kind of feel the same way about. I just think there are other teams that are better than Oklahoma State. I have Oklahoma State 6th. I have them behind Arizona, who I have 3rd. I have Utah, K-State, Arizona, KU, and I have UCF 5th. I think they are really underrated. And that kind of goes to your point, Spencer, that they're a hard team to get a handle on. But for UCF, I think that by the end of the year, they were the most comfortable looking of the newcomers last year, Cincinnati, Houston, BYU. They caught up, I think, physically a little better last year than those other teams did. It took them some time. Like, you go watch the highlights of KU and UCF. UCF was completely physically overmatched, like man for man. It was very obvious which of those teams had been a Big 12 team. But I think by the end of the year, UCF got caught up. I think UCF has added an excellent quarterback in KJ Jefferson. And I think Gus Malzahn's a good offensive coach. I think they've got a lot of weapons. I think they're going to outscore some teams. I have UCF in my top 5. Then I have Oklahoma State 6th. So it's not that I don't think Oklahoma State's going to be good. It's not like I think they're going to go 6-6 all of a sudden. They're going to be at a quarterback disadvantage in a lot of games. And in this league, especially. And I think that will matter. Maybe more than it did. Like, they were a quarterback disadvantage last year, and it didn't maybe matter so much because Ollie Gordon was just that good. But Ollie Gordon came out of nowhere. Now everybody knows who Ollie Gordon is.
Yeah.
And
a lot more people know who he was because of last night.
Yes, that's unfortunate, too. No, a text from 785 agreeing with me, and that's not the only reason I'm reading it. You can disagree with me, and I will still read your text if it's a good one on the Top City Metal Supply text line. We got a text from 785. I felt like the odd man out of Okie State. I just don't see them competing at the top with Bowman at quarterback. That's just kind of where I'm at. Like, 15-14 touchdown to interception ratio last year. I mean, I know he's 38 years old, working on a second doctorate. Like, the experience is helpful, but I don't know. I think there's a bit of a market overcorrection because nobody saw Oklahoma State coming last year, and they ended up making the conference championship game. I think there's a regression coming for Mike Gundy and the Sooners.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that, and it's something that is just going to have to play itself out, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's
this whole
why they play the games, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, last year, as I just mentioned, West Virginia was like second to last or last. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, and they ended up
in the top half.
Yeah, they had, what was it? They beat Texas Tech by a touchdown. They beat TCU by 3.
They beat Houston. 12 seconds left.
No, they lost that game.
No,
they did. They won that game. It's backwards in the Phil Steele. We got a typo, Phil. We got a typo, my guy.
I only know they won that Houston game because I know the guy that scored the touchdown.
No, they lost to Hail.
Oh,
they lost. They lost on the Hail Mary.
Going to.
No,
so
not a typo. You confused me. They lost that game.
But they had the lead with 12 seconds left.
Yes, but they lost that.
Then they lost 5 seconds later.
They beat Baylor by 3 at the end of the year. I don't think that was really a 9-win. They win their bowl. I don't remember if they won their bowl. They did. They beat. They beat North Carolina. Didn't play Drake May or any other guys. So that doesn't. I don't care about that. Like, I don't think they were really an 8-win team. I think they kind of come back to the mean this year as well. Also, I think Colorado's going to stink. I think 11's too high. I think they only win. I think they win 2 conference games. I can only see 2 conference wins for them. I do think Houston, Cincinnati, and Arizona State will be worse. Arizona State, I don't think is going to win a league game. I have a hard time seeing them win one in the league this year. A couple more texts from the Top City Metal Supply text line from the 316. Dan, be like TJ Otzelberger and wear your old shirt. Sartorial influence, TJ Otzelberger. I honest to God, I don't have the shirt anymore. I just think it got shuffled on down the road and further down the pile until it ended up in a Goodwill
or trash.
Yeah, Goodwill giveaway.
Hey,
it happens to old
shirts.
You
go to Goodwill and you can find some random great things.
Oh, that's a fact. That's a fact. So that shirt will not make an appearance anytime soon. I'll see if I've got another large to wear one day or a medium I can pull out. Another one from the 785 on the Top City Metal Supply text line. I have an ugly feeling the Big 12 will cannibalize itself again. That's going to make for great regular season entertainment, right? When you don't know who's going to win week in, week out. Like, I can absolutely see that happening where you've got a bunch of teams with 2 or 3 losses in league play. Now, that won't be great for the playoff selection committee. That won't be great for the chances of getting more than one team in the 12-team playoff. But it'll be great fun for weeks.
Watch every week.
Yeah, weeks 1 through 13 are going to be awesome. So I get the concern from a playoff perspective. Just remember, the playoff is a television show. The playoff is made for TV. The games during the regular season, that's the fun stuff. That's where the good stuff is. That's how I feel anyway. Thanks for the text. Keep them coming. 785-272-9429. Want to know who you think is overrated or underrated or properly rated in the Big 12 preseason football media poll. We're going to take a break, come back with some Random Question Tuesday after this, here on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. .334 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Spencer Trenton with you on this Tuesday afternoon. We have a wide range of opinions, both ends of the spectrum, on Iowa State football in the YouTube live chat. John, in the YouTube comments, says, I have a feeling Iowa State will be the Iowa of the Big 12 again, all hype. Mark dissents. Iowa State might be a dark horse. Phil Steele agrees with you, Mark, for what that's worth. Iowa State, though, plays 5 of the top 8 teams in the preseason media poll, and they have to close at KU, Cincinnati, at Utah, K-State. And they get Farmageddon at home, which is big, but I guess it depends on how much better you think Rocco Becht is going to get as a sophomore and whether or not Abu Sama is actually Walter Payton, which is what he looked like in the snow against K-State last year. So if he is that guy, if Abu Sama is the greatest running back in the history of college football, literally untackleable, which he was in that K-State game. Spencer, you were not around for this. Yeah. Go watch the Farmageddon highlights from last year. Go watch that game in the snow.
Let me put that in my notes.
You will see the preposterous inability for Kansas State to tackle him. It was one of the most baffling football games I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think K-State fans are probably still baffled by it for this day. Also, a text regarding Alan Bowman. Would he be in the top 8? This is from the Top State Mail Supply text line from 785. Would he be in the top 8 of quarterbacks, even top 10? Well, we did a draft about a week ago. In fact, I think it was exactly a week ago. We drafted the quarterbacks in the Big 12 conference.
Yeah, we did.
3 of us, 4 picks. 12 quarterbacks selected. Adam Bowman didn't get drafted.
No, we did not.
So that tells you what the collective here has to say about Alan Bowman. Anyway, let's get to some Random Question Tuesday. We'll bring in our guy, Trenton Craxner, across the glass for this. I've got two. We'll see if we get to them both. But here's my first one. Quick and simple question. What's the best fireworks show you've ever seen? Spencer?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't even know.
Trenton?
Not a big firework guy. Not gonna lie.
I can tell you the worst one I've seen.
That might be a better story. We'll get there.
There was one at my friend's house that I thought was pretty good because my friend, his family, like, Jake's Fireworks.
Yeah.
I worked there a couple of summers helping sell fireworks and stuff like that. Because like one of his uncles is like one of the head guys for Jake's Fireworks, so they put on a pretty cool show and they brought some products back to their house. I think that would probably be the best one.
Okay. What was the worst one then, Spencer?
Well, I'll give you my best one. I believe it was after I graduated high school. We went up to see some family in Connecticut along we were in, I think it's the Sound, I think is what it is. We were at the beach.
Okay.
So it was a nice fireworks.
On the water.
You could see fireworks from all around.
Okay.
Put it that way. And then the time also when I was driving through and you can see all these other, back when I told you at the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The worst one was when I was a kid. I was where my grandma lived, and the fireworks show had a little snafu. So much of a snafu that fireworks went this way instead of this way.
Oh no.
And
duck and cover situation?
Yes, duck and cover situation. I think I'm remembering this correct. I was really young.
Okay.
Really young, probably under the age of 7. I swore I had a spark hit me in the chest.
That's wild.
The next year they moved the fireworks.
I bet they did.
And you couldn't go within like 150 yards or 200 yards of where the fireworks were.
Yeah, like fireworks shows can be great. Failed fireworks shows. Like you ever see the footage of the one in San Diego where they all went off at the same time?
Yeah.
It was just a 20-second explosion in the sky, and that was the end of it. That's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen. I cry laughing every time. For me, I would say the best, I want to go back, I think it was 12 or 13, out at the old Bandimere Speedway, the old drag strip in the mountains in the Denver area. They did a July 4th event and had a fireworks show after. I remember that being pretty cool. I've seen some good ones at Rockies games. The Royals put on a good show too. Minor league baseball, I saw a good one at a Colorado Springs Sky Sox game when I was a kid, but the one at Bandimere jumps out to me. We've got an answer from Paul in the YouTube chat. Best fireworks shows last year, attended Royals Angels in Los Angeles. Post-game fireworks plus Disneyland fireworks from the parking lot afterwards. Pretty cool double feature.
There you go. That is cool.
That does sound cool. All right. Random question, Spencer. Do you got one?
Yes. This goes off of something I lived without for 6 months. We know what that is. We know it's a dining table and a microwave.
Okay.
What have you lived without for the longest time that you didn't think you could live without?
What have I lived without for the longest time that I did not think I could?
Like a thing that you use every day or a lot.
Oh, okay. So I've had a couple of apartments where I didn't have a dishwasher. And let me tell you something. You don't know what you got till it's gone when it comes to having a dishwasher.
Oh, yeah.
Because having to wash everything by hand is for the birds. So I would say definitely my place when I lived in northeastern Colorado for about 13 months prior to getting the job here. I was working for a station in Sterling, Colorado for a year and a month. And the place I was renting there was an old house and it had some modern appliances in it, but it was a pretty old house and no dishwasher. And that was tough. That was really tough. And then when I lived out in Colby, my apartment didn't have a dishwasher either. When I was in Colby between stints here at 580, my apartment did not have a dishwasher. You have an answer for this one, Trenton?
A TV.
How long did you go without the TV?
About 8 months at college. We didn't have a TV in our like dorm room. So I would stream stuff like through phone or computer, and so
see that's something I feel
not
like
quite.
Like you could
but
go
like I
I
wouldn't watch a whole lot of things because like
it's not really like fun to watch something for a long time on your phone or your
no,
computer.
I only did it for like Royals games and like big time sports games.
The important thing.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah.
Mark has the same answer from the YouTube live chat. So TV was something. Hey, how about you, Trent? You got a random question for us?
If you could go back in time to one historical event, doesn't have to be sports or anything, where would you go and why?
I I would stop the Kennedy assassination. I would stop it. I would stop Lee Harvey Oswald, the lone gunman. That's what I would do. No, like if there's something I go back and experience, like not like, oh, I'd go back and kill Hitler. Like the answers like that, like that's a good answer. That would be, you alter the course of human history. But if I could go back and there's no butterfly effect, right? I just go back and experience something as it's happening. Miracle on Ice. 1980 Olympic hockey. I think I would like to have experienced that as it was happening, whether I was in the crowd in Lake Placid or just watching on TV, hearing about it. I think experiencing that firsthand would have been pretty cool.
I would go back and actually go to Houston for the Nationals clinching the World Series. I watched, like Trenton, I had to watch on a
watch on a phone
or laptop, whatever it was, but back when I was at college. When the Capitals won, big screen TV at the house.
Sure.
Because I was home because it was in June.
Trent, what's your answer?
I think it'd be cool to go back and meet William Wallace. The
Braveheart?
Yes.
You just want to meet him?
Yeah.
What, you want autograph, selfie? Like what?
I think going back and experiencing like
very random here.
His preparation, and like obviously it didn't end well for him.
Yeah, but, you learn what not to do.
Right. But I think that'd be a cool thing, like him trying to rally the people of Scotland and fight for their freedom and stuff like that.
That is an incredible answer.
Like I'm a big like history buff and war guy, so I think that'd be pretty cool to experience something like that, where an underdog fighting for their people.
Very cool. That's a cool answer. All right, I had one more, and I'm just going to get it out quick. What was your first online screen name, whether it was instant messenger or a message board or your first email address? What was your first internet screen name, and where did it come from?
All right, here we go. This was normal for you, but when I was in middle school, it was cool to be on AIM.
Oh yeah, no, it was cool to be on
normal for you guys, but it was our first soiree into
it was also our first. Like
we're on the very latter end of it.
Yes, beginning and end. Yeah.
And my I'm pretty sure I was Sandbox Man 08 because I used to have a Sandbox.
Sandbox Man 08. What's the 08 for?
I don't remember. I was 8 years old, perhaps.
All right.
And then my first Xbox name was Tupac X Spencer. I have no reasoning behind that.
TUPAC or the number 2 PAC?
No, Tupac, like the artist.
Incredible. Trenton?
I'm very basic. I just used my name because I got like Snapchat and Instagram before we had email in middle school for school emails. So I don't have anything cool, unfortunately.
You have a cool name though. Like you have a very unique, like you're that would be a boring answer if your name were like John Smith.
Right.
Hey, I do have a question. Do you know what AIM is?
Did you ever have AOL Instant Messenger?
No.
Never knew never knew the joy of updating your away status, your away message.
I think I've heard of it, but
making me feel old.
You making you feel that's wild. From the text line for the 785, shoes 41 Nike. Love shoes, basketball number, and again the shoes. So I was Cy Young 29 because 29 was the number I got my freshman year of baseball. And Cy Young because I was a pitcher. So Cy Young 29. I've also used DPU Lefty 22 because I'm left-handed. DPU, DePaul University, and the number 22 was the number I wore after I wore number 29 in high school. So that's Random Question Tuesday. We're taking a quick break. We'll come back. Which Chief is a breakout candidate for 2024? Bucky Brooks has an intriguing answer. We'll tell you who it is next on 580 Sports Talk. 3:48 on 580 Sports Talk. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, our first What Is Wrong With You for the month. And Michael Swain of Fog.net joins us for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll have plenty of football to get to with Michael Swain. Speaking of football, saw this, NFL.com. Bucky Brooks, former NFL player and scout, put out his all breakout teams for 2024, offense and defense. Players he thinks will break out in 2024. And there's a chief on the defense. I'll give you folks a moment at home listening to think about who it might be. It's Joshua Williams. And here's what Bucky Brooks has to say about the 24-year-old corner. Perhaps the Chiefs were willing to move on from L'Jarius Sneed due to Williams' potential as a sticky cover corner in a man-heavy scheme. Since his arrival as a fourth-round pick out of Fayetteville State in 2022, Williams' growth has raised eyebrows around the league, with scouts and executives appreciating the small school standouts game. As an instinctive playmaker with exceptional length, Williams has earned rave reviews for his work as a part-time player in Kansas City's defensive backfield. He is not afraid of the bright lights and big stage, as evidenced by his play as a young defender on the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. With more opportunities to showcase his talents against elite receivers in the AFC, Williams could emerge as a worthy complement to Trent McDuffie on the perimeter. So a couple of thoughts here. First, I do think that Williams, and to a lesser extent, but maybe a similar extent, Jalen Watson have really been overlooked. Maybe not locally, maybe not among Chiefs fans. Like, obviously, we're very aware of who those guys are and some of the big plays that they've made. But I do think that Williams and Watson kind of get lost in the shuffle when you talk about the guys who've made the Chiefs defense go for the last 2 years, particularly because at defensive back, you're talking about a position group that included L'Jarius Sneed, who was incredible last year, and Trent McDuffie, who was an all-pro last year. So with those two guys at corner, it's a little natural for everybody else, I think, to get lost in the wash when you're talking about the players at that spot. Now, last season, it certainly felt like ya boy, Spencer, and I don't say this in a joking or derogatory way. I say ya boy because he's a fellow Thundering Herdsman.
Marshall
alum. We'll go with that. Najee Johnson.
Yeah.
He looked like he was in line to start at corner for the Chiefs before he tore up his ACL in training camp.
Doesn't just look like it from an outsider perspective. Justin Reed said it.
Yeah.
Said as much last month.
And there's his possibility for emerging in a similar fashion coming off of the injury. And there's Shamari Connor, who's a guy we've talked about at length this offseason as somebody who seems primed to step into the slot role this year and keep Trent McDuffie from having to be strictly the slot corner. There's that other outside corner spot and two guys who maybe they haven't started a bunch of games, but think about the last 2 seasons of Chiefs football and try and imagine them without some of the contributions of a Joshua Williams and a Jalen Watson.
Yeah.
And for Brooks to single out Williams in particular really surprised me, because if you'd told me before I opened up the article, yeah, there's a Chiefs defensive back on this list, my first guess honestly would have been Shamari Connor, because that's the guy that a lot of the Chiefs players were talking about coming out of OTAs, that he has come a long way and that he played a really integral role in the playoffs last year. He might have been my first guess. I'm not sure Joshua Williams would have been my first guess. I don't even know he would have been my second guess.
For what it's worth, our friends at ourlads.com, the depth chart website that kind of they use a lot of things to put it in there, but a lot of talk during OTAs and stuff like that. They do have Joshua Williams slated behind Trent McDuffie. And right now at the right side corner, they have Najee Johnson in front of Jalen Watson. But again, this is all before anything on the field happens.
Right. So what I think is going to happen will be McDuffie on one side and then TBA on the other side. Yeah. And I think Connor gets the first nod in the slot, depending on the matchups. There might be a matchup where you need McDuffie in the slot. I think McDuffie will have the flexibility to travel a little bit. And then you might see Johnson and Williams, or Williams and Watson, or Watson and Johnson on the outside with maybe Connor playing a little bit more safety and McDuffie traveling a little bit more as the matchups warrant. It's a good problem to have.
Was Shamari Connor a straight up corner, or is he a safety as well?
That's the beauty of Shamari Connor, is that he kind of filled whatever role the Chiefs needed him to fill last year. And I think they're grooming him as the slot guy. And I would expect, based on some of the reporting from the likes of Nate Taylor and some of the comments from Chiefs players coming out of OTAs, like I would think the perfect world alignment would be him in the slot, McDuffie on one side, and then, again, TBA on the other. But that's really high praise for Joshua Williams. And maybe that's a guy that has been forgotten a little bit last year in particular, because the light shone so brightly on Snead and on McDuffie, one of whom was an all-pro and one of whom should have been, that maybe you forget about, hey, wait a minute, Williams and Watson were third-day picks, both of them, and have played a big role, if not a starting role. They have played an important supporting role in that secondary and at that cornerback spot the last couple of years. And now with the departure of Snead, there's an opportunity for somebody to step forward. Bucky Brooks says might be Joshua Williams. That's interesting to read that about the attention that he's gotten around the league too. And Bucky Brooks is really tied in. I mean, not just from the sense that, oh, he works for NFL Network. Like, he played in the league. He scouted in the league. He knows what people are talking about.
Yeah.
And for Williams, I think to get that level of preseason recognition suggests that he's a guy that could be playing a much larger role than we might have considered moving forward. I mean, we know they need an outside starter at corner, and it's going to be a fascinating battle because, like I said, I think Connor's the guy in the slot. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think McDuffie will travel. So that's one spot on the outside for a lot of games. And whether it's Williams, Watson, or Johnson will be one of the more fascinating position battles for a team that, frankly, doesn't have a lot of position battles, because you don't have a lot of position battles when you're the back-to-back Super Bowl champion.
Exactly.
So it's something that's going to provide some intrigue, I think, for this upcoming 2024 season. That's going to do it for the 3 o'clock hour. We're halfway home on this Tuesday. In the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to Michael Swain of Fog.net. We'll have What Is Wrong With You. But first, the preseason All Big 12 team is out. Who is honored, and why aren't any of the answers Kansas State players? We'll talk about it in the Drive to Zero studios here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 3 of 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for being with us and spending some of your afternoon with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or on our live video stream. Hello, people watching on the video, whether you're watching on Facebook, WIBW News, you might be watching on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk, or if you're watching on our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe today. Become a fan. It costs you nothing but a click, and it warms our cold, cold hearts when you subscribe.
You can comment like John P.
580 Sports Talk. Yeah, Spencer, I don't know if you knew this, but it was it is your fault that K-State football lost to Marshall in 2003. It is your fault.
Yeah, fun fact, I actually mock called that game for a sportscasting class.
2003?
Yeah. From a video.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mock called that game.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you're pretty familiar then.
And then I mock called the game where Marshall hosted K-State, I think a year or two later, and they lost.
Okay. So K-State did get their lick back.
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
So thank you for that, John, who tweeted on the we were talking about Marshall football. Of course, Spencer, a proud alumnus of Marshall University.
Yeah, really happy to see the Dynasty trailer for EA Sports College Football and see Marshall in there, and go on Twitter and see WVU fans
playing.
Not so happy that that Marshall was in there a few too many times, according to them.
Playing as your alma mater, a joy I will never know. I don't have the time to get too granular into like the team builder and import my alma mater into the college football video game universe. But yes, John was discussing as we were talking about where you matriculated for college about that K-State loss to Marshall in 2003 and said he probably had very little to do with it, but I'm going to blame Spencer for the loss. So you're 1-0 all time. That's your career record.
I don't know,
apparently.
because then they went to Huntington on September 10th, 2005, and they won 21-19. And then they went back then Marshall went back to Manhattan a year later and lost 23-7. So Marshall is 1-2 in the series.
I see. But you're 1-0.
Yeah.
You're 1-0.
Apparently.
Vance also likes your hat. We're both wearing Royals hats today, which is quite something for neither of us being from the state of Kansas or native Royals fans. You've got the pretty sharp, like the trucker hat, the black with the blue outline KC, and I've got the City Connect hat, but I've got it in different colors. I've got it in the traditional royal blue with a gold brim. I really like the City Connect. I also like the Royals team colors. So I found this hat and I bought it. I bought it on New Era's website.
I bet I paid less than you paid.
You definitely did. I'm a bit of a hat snob, and I have not typically I like to get the fancy fitted caps. I just that's just me. That's just me and what I put on my head. I don't begrudge anybody who people love like the free hats, and I usually give free hats away. Like I like to wear.
This wasn't a free hat.
I didn't say it was. I didn't say it was. Mark said he liked my shirt earlier, and I apologize. This is old WIBW polo. I've had this for a long time. Apologies, Mark. You did say something nice, and I talked right over it. And
That's a nice WIBW polo. I wish I had one.
Thank you very much. We'll get you some swag eventually. We'll get you some swag at some point. Interact with the show in the YouTube live chat. You can also hit us up in the Top City Metal Supply text line. That is 785-272-9429. The Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. Coming up later this hour, our first What Is Wrong With You for the month of July, and Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us for Jayhawk Weekly. We're going to get his thoughts on the preseason All Big 12 football honors. We talked about the poll in the 3 o'clock hour. We'll reset that a little bit later on in the show. But now let's get to the All Big 12 team. Again, as voted on by the media. There was only one unanimous selection, it appears, for the All Big 12 preseason team, and that would be your Offensive Player of the Year, Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon III. So in 24 hours, that's OPOY and DUI for Ollie Gordon.
Good one.
Been quite a 24 hours for Ollie. Again, more to come in headlines. He's your Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive player of the year, Travis Hunter, cornerback, Colorado. Again, it's like we talked about with Shedeur Sanders. The hype, the everything that surrounds Coach Prime tends to drown out everything about Colorado football. Travis Hunter is an unbelievable football player.
Yeah.
Like he is genuinely one of the 5 or 10 best football players in the country. I firmly believe that. In terms of all-around ability, that's what elevates him, because there aren't a whole lot of guys. There really aren't anybody else playing the wide receiver position and the cornerback position at the level at which he plays it. I happen to think his skill set is rarer as a defensive back than it is as a wide receiver. I think that's where his professional future lies. He was the defensive player of the year, according to the media, in the preseason all Big 12 honors. The newcomer of the year, KJ Jefferson from UCF. More love for the big quarterback, formerly from Arkansas. I'm a big KJ Jefferson fan. I like watching him play. I was bummed last year when he was stuck in that miserable Dan Enos offense at Arkansas, and he got worse, and everything about that team got worse. That was a bummer. KJ Jefferson at his best is really good and really fun. And I think KJ Jefferson in a Gus Malzahn offense is going to absolutely rock the Casbah. I think he's going to have a really, really good year. And I think UCF is going to accordingly be I don't know that they're a real contender to win the Big 12 championship. I don't think they're going to reach the game, but I do think they're a top 5 team in the league. I have them in my top 5 instead of Oklahoma State.
Who'd you say that?
What's that?
Who'd you say?
UCF.
Oh,
yeah.
See, I'm a little different on them. I don't know it's hard to think. It's hard to see
right
where they could go, because they're 6-7 last year. And
right. Yeah. I respect that there's a wide range of opinions on UCF. I'm on the higher end on them because I think they've got really good offensive skill talent. I think KJ Jefferson is good, and I think Gus Malzahn's a good coach. I do. I'm higher maybe on the Gus bus than others are. Anyhow, here's your team. Here's your preseason all Big 12. Quarterback, Colorado's Shedeur Sanders. That is remarkable to me. We did the quarterback draft for the Big 12 on the show a week ago yesterday. I had the number 1 overall pick, and I did not take Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders is good. Again, if you can minimize the hype, if you can look beyond the hype, which is a very, very hard thing to do for a lot of reasons when it comes to Colorado football, Shedeur Sanders is a very good quarterback. I do not think he's the best quarterback in the Big 12. I think I would have put Noah Fafita on this list. I would have put Cam Rising on this list before I would have put Shedeur Sanders on this list. Those are my top 3, but I'm very surprised that Shedeur Sanders was the preseason all Big 12 quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's who I picked as the third person.
Right, you had the third pick, and that's who was there.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that was the outcome, that he ended up being the preseason all-league quarterback. The running backs, Ollie Gordon, who, again, is the only unanimous pick, only player to be named on every media ballot, and Texas Tech's Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks is a good football player. I don't want anybody to get it twisted. I'm not sitting here and in my disagreement saying, oh, this guy's a bum or this guy stinks. Although I guess I did say that about Alan Bowman. I guess I don't think Alan Bowman's very good. Like, Taj Brooks rushed for 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. Those are crazy numbers. He's a good player. I don't think he's a better football player than Devin Neal. And I don't think he's a better football player than DJ Giddens. And I would have had both of those guys on my list before Taj Brooks. And I think I would have had UCF's RJ Harvey ahead of Taj Brooks. And I know Taj Brooks, again, put up the numbers, but like, you got to remember, Texas Tech had the quarterback injuries last year. Taj Brooks was the entire offense. It was it. It was Taj Brooks, or we just may as well punt. And so I think that inflated the numbers a little bit. And I think a lot of times people fill out these numbers. They go and they pull out the Phil Steele magazine. Or they go to College Football Reference or whatever, and they go and they look at, okay, who led the conference in rushing yards last year? Oh, Ollie Gordon and Taj Brooks. Okay, that's fine. And then that's their ballot. You cannot tell me with a straight face that Taj Brooks is a better football player than Devin Neal. And I don't believe he's a better football player than DJ Giddens. And I personally would have had both Neal and Giddens ahead of Brooks. I'm mystified as to how Devin Neal is not a first-team all-league player.
I mean, look, I think Dylan Edwards could be better than Brooks.
That's lofty expectations. And I think maybe long haul, there could be something there for sure. But
yeah, I didn't mean this year. I
Yeah.
just meant like as a football player.
I really, really think Devin Neal got shafted here.
Yeah.
I don't know what Devin Neal has to do. He rushed for 1,280 yards last year, a yard per carry more than Taj Brooks.
So
for
do they
what it's
only
worth.
put out one team?
Yes, it's just
Okay.
one team. Like they don't do like the honorable mention. They don't do a second team. It's just
Okay.
one team. For what it's worth, Phil Steele agrees with this. Has Ollie Gordon and Taj Brooks at his first team, all Big 12 running backs. No, man. Like I've watched, and maybe this is just me being too close to the situation. Devin Neal's better than Taj Brooks. I would take Devin Neal before I take Taj Brooks. And I really feel like the coaches across the league would take Devin Neal before they would take Taj Brooks. I think if you gave them all truth serum, every coach in this league would take Devin Neal before they took Taj Brooks. And maybe they wouldn't say that about DJ Giddens, but I would. Because I've seen DJ Giddens, and I think he's a dynamic receiving threat in a way that Taj Brooks is not. I just think that was wrong. I think that the big positions, the media got it wrong here. The fullback, there's a fullback on the preseason All Big 12 media team. They got to be the only conference that still names a fullback. It's the delightfully named Steve-O Klotz from Iowa State.
That's a great name.
It is a great
for
name.
a fullback specifically.
Absolutely. It is one of the most fullback names.
Yes.
It is up there with like Max Strong as a great fullback name. Max Strong, of course, former Seattle Seahawk, played in the NFL for a really long time. That's the best fullback name there's ever been. But Steve-O Klotz is damn close.
It is.
4 wide receivers: Arizona's Tetaroa McMillan, UCF's Kobe Hudson, Iowa State's Jaden Higgins, and Oklahoma State's Brennan Presley. For what that's worth, that's the top 3 in returning receiving yards in the conference: Higgins, Presley, and Hudson, and then McMillan, who would have been at the top of my ballot too. I don't have too much to argue with here. Obviously, this is a very pro Luke Grimm and Lawrence Arnold program when it comes to Kansas's wide receivers, but I understand that them not cracking the top 4. Utah's Brant Keithy is the tight end. The offensive lineman, Arizona's Jonah Savayanea. I think that's close. Cincinnati's Luke Kandra. Oklahoma State has 2 linemen, Dalton Cooper, Joe Mahalski, and West Virginia's Wyatt Milam. Arizona place kicker Tyler Loop, and Texas Tech return man Dre McCray. That's your first team All Big 12 preseason offense. On defense, 5 defensive linemen. BYU's Tyler Batty, Cincinnati's Dante Corleone, who I don't know if we got to this the other day, a bit of a health scare, unfortunately, for the very talented defensive tackle from Cincinnati, Dante Corleone. I believe it's a heart issue. And there may be some long-term concern about whether or not he can get back on the field this season for Cincinnati, which, I mean, he's their best player by a lot. And if he can't get on the field.
It's blood clots.
Yeah, blood clots. That's what it is. My mistake. And either way, it's not something you want to play with.
No.
Or mess around with, I guess, to be less confusing. And hopefully he can play because, again, outstanding player. He's all Cincinnati's got on defense.
Yeah, they put no timetable for his return. He was released, or he was hospitalized June 14th after chest discomfort and shortness of breath.
Yeah, he was first team All AAC as a freshman and second team All Big 12 last year. So really, really good player, and hoping for a speedy recovery for him. BJ Green from Colorado. He was second team All Pac-12 last year at Arizona State, transferring to Colorado. He's on the first team defensive line. Lee Hunter from UCF, Junior Tafuna from Utah. So that is that's a lot of newcomers to the league there on the defensive line. 3 linebackers: Jacob Manu from Arizona and Nick Martin and Colin Oliver for Oklahoma State. 5 defensive backs: Takario Davis from Arizona, Travis Hunter from Colorado, Iowa State's Jeremiah Cooper, and 2 Kansas Jayhawks, Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson. And for me, Bryant was the stone cold lock. Like, if you had come to me and you had told me that Kansas had a pair of first team all conference preseason players, I would have said Devin Neal and Kobe Bryant. Those would have been my guesses. I would have been half right. Mello Dotson, it's well deserved. I think he's a really good player. I think that Kansas's secondary is maybe a little underrated nationally with the building blocks that you have with those 2 guys. And I think it's really cool to see both of them get some preseason recognition. So those are your all-conference players. A quick rundown here. 6 players for Oklahoma State on the preseason all-conference team. 5 Arizona Wildcats. 3 players apiece from Colorado, Iowa State, and Utah. 2 players apiece from Texas Tech, UCF, Cincinnati, and Kansas. 1 West Virginia Mountaineer, 1 BYU Cougar, and no players from Arizona State, who is projected to finish last in the league. No players from Houston, who's projected to finish second to last. No players from Baylor, who projects to finish 12th. No players from TCU, who projects to finish 10th. And no K-State Wildcats. The team that the media thinks will finish second in the league, the same media does not believe, by consensus, that they have an all-conference first-team player. Now, for the record, should point out that Phil Steele agrees with that assessment. Phil Steele doesn't have any K-Staters on his first team. The highest honor that a K-State player comes in for, he's got 4 of them on his second team. Jordan Riley at safety, Austin Moore at linebacker, Uso Seumalo at defensive tackle, and Easton Kilty, the transfer from North Dakota State, at offensive tackle. Let me start here, Spencer. If you were going to advocate for a K-State Wildcat to be on this team, who would it be?
That's a good question. It's got to be one of those guys that you just mentioned.
So
I don't think
Uso's kind of a rotational guy. Like,
yeah.
He's not a 3-down guy. Like, I think he's really good in his role, but I want to see if he's a 3-down guy. I want to see Jordan Riley and his, his transition to the program after he transfers in from the MAC, from Ball State. Easton Kilty, same deal. I think he's going to really be solid at left tackle coming from North Dakota. But I think I said North Dakota State earlier. That was my mistake. North Dakota. But again, hasn't proven it at the level. Austin Moore at linebacker. It's tough to squeeze in when you only get 3 spots at linebacker. I think they're probably, if you're going to have 5 defensive linemen, I think, and 5 defensive backs, there should be 4 linebackers.
Yeah.
And maybe Austin Moore would have squeezed on there. I think he would have had as good a case as anybody, frankly, to be a first team all defense. He's probably the most experienced guy there. Like, I get why you wouldn't put DJ Giddens on the list, and I get why you wouldn't put like Desmond Purnell or Brendan Mott, guys I'm really high on, guys I think are really good football players, but I understand why there were players who were in star roles last year for their respective teams, and they're the ones who make these preseason teams. K-State is a team that doesn't have a guy who, other than Giddens, who was a star for last year's team, who was an all-conference lock from last year's team.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up with none of them on the preseason roster when you're talking about even some of the newcomers to the league, like BJ Green was second team all league in his old league with his old team last year, who his old team's also now in the Big 12.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I agree with the text we just got on the Top City Mail Supply text line from the 785. Preseason doesn't matter. All they did was guarantee a huge purple chip on their shoulders. The postseason honors will look much different.
Another one from the 316 on the Top City Mail Supply text line. Great fuel for the Cats. They will be a good team with plenty of youth. Obviously, like, people think it's just fascinating, the dichotomy, right? Like, the other teams that don't have any players on this list are teams that nobody thinks are going to be very good. And now here's the team that got 1 fewer first place vote than the team that is in first place in the poll. And they're second, and by some distance, they're second. It's not like they're closer to Utah, number 1, than they are to Oklahoma State at number 3 in the media poll. But for that same media to not have any players from that team in the preseason poll, I think you can look at it 2 ways. I think you can look at it optimistically, and this is how I tend to view it, that this is a team with a lot of depth and a team with some solid guys who weren't stars last year, who have a potential to step into star roles and perform at a high level in 2024. And not just like the guys that we were talking about who Phil Steele has on his second team, like Avery Johnson, obviously, like Jace Brown and Keegan Johnson at wide receiver, Garrett Oakley at tight end. Like, I think there are some really, really good players on this team. Hadley Panzer at left guard. Man, no love for Hadley Panzer, I think, is a good player out of Lake in Kansas. That's the one way to look at it. I think the other way, if you were inclined to be negative, the other way to look at it is to say, well, like, let's borrow from Jerome Tang. Who wins games? Dudes.
Yeah.
Where are the dudes? If you got dudes, like, this is a list full of dudes. Where are the dudes for K-State? Who's going to be a dude for K-State? If they don't have a preseason all-league player, and they don't have a player returning from, like, DJ Giddens was 4th team all Big 12 last year. Like, you don't have a second-team guy, a first-team guy coming back. Where are the dudes? And again, I think my tendency is to believe that there are dudes on this roster. There are guys who are going to be really solid players. And I just don't think that, as a texter 316 points out, it's a nod to the program, not just the players. I don't think there's like a weakness on K-State's roster. Like, I don't think there's a position group you look at and say, oh man, this is a fire. Like, this is a 3-alarm fire. This is an emergency. They don't have anybody proven. They don't have anybody with experience. They don't have anybody good. They don't have any potential dudes. No, there's potential dudes up and down that roster. And the media knows that. Even if they don't know who the individual dudes are yet, they know there's potential dudes up and down this K-State 2 deep. And that's why they're second in the league without a preseason honoree, which is pretty remarkable. We got to take a break. What is wrong with you? Coming your way next on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Time for What Is Wrong With You. It's our first one for the month of July as we start down the path of picking a monthly champion. 2 news stories today. Trenton's got one from the great state of Florida. Trenton, I'll let you go first.
All right, let me click on the link here.
Yeah, that would help.
It's a shorter week than normal this week because we'll have today, tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have today, tomorrow.
Thursday.
We are off Thursday for 4th of July, and then we'll have Friday. We'll crown a short week champion to start July. Go ahead, Trenton.
All right, as you said, from the Sunshine State, Florida man accused of shooting Walmart delivery drone, Dennis Wynn, 72, faces firearm and criminal mischief charges. from Lake County, Florida. A man arrested Wednesday in Lake County is accused of rendering thousands of dollars in damage to a drone that he shot as they attempted to make a delivery for Walmart. Dennis Wynn, 72, faces charges of shooting or throwing a deadly missile into dwellings, vessels, or vehicles, criminal mischief above $1,000, and discharging a firearm in public or on residential property, records show. Walmart in 2022 announced it was rolling out drone deliveries in Florida via Drone Up, a Virginia-based commercial drone services company that partnered with the supermarket giant in 2021, pending a news release to express hopes the effort would influence the expansion of drone technology and enable other businesses to explore its benefits. According to Wynn's arrest affidavit, a 2-man Drone Up crew was at a delivery point in the Overlook at Lake Louisa neighborhood when the shooting occurred. The document noted that the crew was there campaigning for Drone Up, which is, in this case, was to include a proof of concept mock delivery to their location. The drone was around 230 feet in the air when it arrived, descending to around 75 feet when one of the crew members heard what they thought was a gunshot, the affidavit states. Both the crew and drone raced back to the Walmart at US 27 and John Lakes Road, where deputies responded around 6 p.m. after the crew members reportedly found a bullet hole in the drone's payload system.
Man, nice shot.
A deputy made it back to the neighborhood, making contact with Wynn in the 11,300 block of LeMay Drive and asking if he had any incident with a drone. Wynn allegedly said he used a 9mm handgun to shoot a drone that flew over his house as he was working on his pool pump, recounting past experiences with drones that he thought was surveilling him.
All right, I'm going to stop right there. Hold on. Recounting past experiences with drones that he thought were surveilling him. Sir, you are a 72-year-old Florida man. I promise drones are not surveilling you.
Yeah, it's the...
Lots of other things are surveilling you. Your phone, for instance.
Right.
Your phone is very much surveilling you. Drones are not surveilling
That
you.
might be the anxiety that he's heard like on TV or radio, that you're being watched all the time. But while waiting for a transport vehicle, he allegedly yelled out to neighbor that he was going to jail for shooting a drone, according to the affidavit. The shooting incurred some $2,500 in damage to the drone, with the crew noting business operations also be impacted due to the aircraft being rendered inoperable, according to the affidavit. Wynn was booked later that evening and released last Thursday afternoon after posting a $13,500 bond, records show.
Nice shot, man.
Yeah,
first and foremost, he plugged it out of midair. That's with a 9mm. That's pretty impressive. But no, like a little bit of paranoia here going on. They are not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I undersold that a little bit. All right. We're staying in Florida for my story. And we meet 22-year-old Jillian Yu. I'm not even going to try her last name. She was arrested for domestic battery after attacking her boyfriend because he declined to cuddle with her. Investigators say the cuddle kerfluffle, say that 5 times fast, began Saturday evening when Jillian argued with her beau regarding victim's disinterest in defendant engaging in physical intimacy. The dispute reignited Sunday morning in the couple's Seminole residence after Jillian continually tried to cuddle with the victim. Now, cuddle is in quotes here, so, draw your own conclusions. When the man rebuffed the cuddling, police say, Jillian escalated the dispute into a physical confrontation, allegedly grabbing the victim's chest hair, scratching his face, biting him on the forehead, and breaking his phone. After being read her rights, Jillian reportedly admitted that she continued to touch the victim multiple times after being repeatedly told to stop, and characterized the touching as cuddling. Seen above, I don't know why I read that part. You can't see her. This is radio. She was arrested for domestic battery, a misdemeanor, and booked into the county jail, released from custody today on her own recognizance. A judge ordered her to have no contact with the victim, which the victim had ordered her to have no contact with him too, and that's how we got here. So, unwanted cuddling, attempted cuddling, it's a crime these days. So those are our stories. We got the guy who shot a drone out of midair. We got the woman who wouldn't take no for an answer when it came to snuggle time. Who you got, Spencer?
It's got to be the dude shooting the drone out of the midair.
It is impressive.
Like, it's impressive, and he was so paranoid about it. Like, come on.
That is pretty impressive. They plugged the drone out of midair. I'm okay with that. Trenton, how do you feel?
I was going to vote for the cuddling story.
Oh, yeah?
She attacked him.
She broke his phone.
Right. And then she was scratching him and biting at him and stuff like that.
I can't imagine this was
Poor guy.
cuddling. I
mean,
really can't.
You know what they say? No means no.
No means no. Yes, exactly.
Right.
That is correct. Both of these are wild stories. Any one of them would be a good winner, but I do love the vision of the old man shooting a drone out of midair.
I just want to relive that like as a fly in the air.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that happen and wonder how the crew reacted to that. So that's our winner, the Walmart drone shooter. That's going to be our first weekly or daily winner in July on What Is Wrong With You. We got to take a break. Michael Swain of Fog.net joins us next for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. It is that time where we welcome in the great Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, for Jayhawk Weekly. We do this every Tuesday at this time. Michael joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Again, you can find his work at Fog.net. Subscribe today, become a VIP over at 24/7 Sports, and find him on Twitter at mswain247. Michael, if I had told you 4 years ago that in 2024, in the preseason Big 12 poll, Kansas would be a top 4 football team in a 16-team league, which parts of that sentence would be a bigger surprise to you?
Probably where KU stands. I'd ask you what other 15 teams are in the league, and is it Wyoming and Boise State and teams like that? You know, it's incredible to think about how much has really changed, honestly, since Lance Flatpool took over in 2021. We're now, I'll be at Big 12 Media Days next week, and it'll be a team that's picked to finish in the top 5, had some first place votes. I mean, it really is crazy when you put it into the broader context of the program, how far things have come. And it says a lot too that I don't think any KU fan was surprised that KU was picked to finish, fourth, right? I think a lot of fans expected it. I expected to see KU come in at number 3 or number 4, and it's just you put all that together, and it is pretty wild when you take a step back.
So they are 4th in the Big 12 football preseason poll, behind only Utah, K-State, and Oklahoma State. And you did a good job outlining this on Twitter earlier today, Michael, that Kansas's schedule is pretty favorable, particularly in comparison to some of these other teams that are going to be in the mix, according to the media, for a Big 12 championship. Getting to play 5 of the bottom 8 teams in the league, is that, as much as anything, a big part of the reason why it feels like a Big 12 championship, or at least a Big 12 championship game appearance, is a realistic opportunity for this team?
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting too, because I think different probably. I don't vote in the poll. I don't look. My job is covering Kansas. I don't know enough about other teams to rank them. I think other people factor in schedule. I think some people don't. I'd be fascinated to see what people think if they were to factor in schedule for everybody and everyone were to do it very similarly, because I think KU has one of the lighter schedules in the conference. I think Arizona might have one that's slightly lighter, just in terms of the overall top end teams you play, because KU does still have to play K-State, where you look at Arizona, their big rivalry game is Arizona State, team picked to finish last. So, for KU, it's kind of a big picture. It's talented team, talented and old team meets fairly light schedule. And I think the fact that there are 2 bye weeks in this season, and you look at some of the harder games, it's K-State away, Iowa State at home, West Virginia away. Well, KU has a bye week the week before Iowa State. KU has Houston with a bye week before Houston, before they play K-State. So not necessarily like KU's going to have to go on the road and play at West Virginia, then come back and then play K-State on the road, right? The schedule has a nice flow to it where you really can talk yourself into, if KU gets a win on the road at West Virginia in week 4, maybe it is. I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but if KU beats West Virginia on the road early in the season, there's a very good possibility KU could go into the Sunflower Showdown undefeated. And that'd be a great opportunity for the KU football program. So I think broadly, this is a team that is talented enough to make it to the Big 12 title game and has a schedule easy enough to make it to the Big 12 title game. So you put all that stuff together, and it's where KU lies, and where there's a lot of high expectations for this team.
Michael Swain of Fog.net joining us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Tuesday at this time. Again, check out his great work at Fog.net. 2 Jayhawks on the preseason all Big 12 team, and they both play the same position. Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson, 2 of the 5 defensive backs on the preseason all Big 12 team, again, as selected by the media. I think Kobe Bryant was kind of a no-brainer, given he was a first-team all-conference performer last season. Mello Dotson was second team last year. He makes this first team. Kobe Bryant kind of gets all the headlines, I think, in a way, on this KU defense. But what's the ceiling for Mello Dotson this year?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Mello does this year. He's definitely more of an even keel personality, where I think you see just how outgoing of a personality Kobe Bryant is, right? If you follow him on Twitter, you see a lot of that. And if you watch his interviews with us, you see that. Melo's different, right? Kind of more soft-spoken. I think people around the team would maybe say differently, but at least outwardly soft-spoken. And I think he's a guy that you look at the size he has, the length, the ball skills, he's got all the potential. And he's the type of player that if he wasn't playing with Kobe Bryant as his partner, he'd be getting, I think, a lot more run as man, look how great of a star this guy is. But the fact that Kobe is on the opposite side, teams have to pick a guy to throw at, right? Teams aren't just not going to throw the ball. So Melo's the one they pick. And I think as a result, it maybe can impact some thinking. But I think Melo, in terms of his ceiling, I think he's got NFL written all over him. If he can become a more consistent tackler, I think continuing to develop physically is always going to be a thing you're looking forward with kind of corners that are built like him. So I think overall, like, sky's the limit for him this year. I'm really excited to see what he can do after another full off season. And I think having a different voice in the cornerbacks room, I should say, is going to be really interesting, right? Having Jordan Peterson for 2 seasons, and then now having DK McDonald, who comes from the NFL and can maybe offer some different tips. Like, I'm really interested to see how these corners develop under DK McDonald, because theoretically, I think there'd be some more new ideas, new techniques, tips, tricks, things like that maybe these guys can adopt.
There were always going to be really good running backs left off the preseason all Big 12 team, just because there are so many outstanding ones in this conference. I don't think any other Power 4 conference has the level of running back play coming into this 2024 season that the Big 12 does. That being said, I was still pretty startled to not see Devin Neal's name on the list next to Ollie Gordon. I thought Gordon for sure, and then Neal for sure. To me, those are 1 and 2 with the bullet. So you tell me, Michael, why do you think people underrate Devin Neal?
Well, look, I don't even know if it's underrated. I think, look, this is a media poll, and like I said earlier, right, I don't have the time to go through and make myself an expert at every school. So if I had to venture a guess of what people do, is they go look at the total rushing yards for last year. All right, who's coming back? All right, Ollie Gordon is great. And then you look at the total numbers, and Taj Brooks had 1,600 yards, right? I mean, he put up more counting stats than Devin Neal. Now, probably what people maybe didn't look at is the yards per carry. I think touchdowns are pretty important in football. Devin Neal had 17, Taj Brooks had 10. And so I think there's some of that is just face value stats and what people do, because I think you look, all right, look, we can look at the coaching, all Big 12 teams from last year, right? When the coaches picked, Devin Neal and Ollie Gordon were first team all Big 12. Nothing has changed. They're both back. So why all of a sudden is Devin left off? Well, I think it's because just people looking at stats and not necessarily, I think, taking into account how efficient Devin was and how fewer touches he had compared to Taj Brooks.
Outside of Neal, if there's a KU player that you would have maybe liked to see get some preseason recognition from the media in a poll like this, who would that be? Who's a guy you think is maybe not getting some of the attention nationally that you think he's going to earn on the gridiron this coming fall?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I'd love to say one of KU's wide receivers, but the issue with that is they just spread the ball around so much that it's hard to make an argument for an all Big 12 thing, right? When it does come down at the end of the day to stats and numbers. And I just don't think the KU's wide receivers are going to be able to have the, oh my gosh, look at how incredible this guy is type of numbers. I think defensively for KU, I think someone like Marvin Grant could end up being like a second team all Big 12 safety by the time the season ends. He's going to play a really versatile role this fall. He's going to play some boundary safety where Kenny Logan has played. But with Craig Young gone, like, KU's going to have to get creative with that spot. And Marvin Grant is going to be one of the guys that is moving up and playing kind of that hybrid linebacker role. And I think that's the perfect role for who Marvin Grant is as a football player. He's athletic. He's physical. I think he really does show a decent cover skills. Maybe not necessarily a guy you're thinking of, as a safety man, he's a great cover guy. But I think he's got a very well-rounded skill set to where he can put up some really big numbers this season. And subsequently, I think, have a really good year and a good final year and potentially end up on one of those, all Big 12 teams that coaches pick or, an AP all Big 12 potential.
We're joined by Michael Swain of Fog.net and 24/7 Sports on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can find him on Twitter at mswain247. Transition over to hoops. Last week was the NBA draft. Did you foresee Johnny Furphy falling to the second round? It kind of seemed like from all the chatter that he was going to be a latter end of the first round pick. I mean, he was invited to the green room. How'd you see that happen?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised. I think we also got to be clear here, right? The green room stuff, the invite list is growing for the green room. I think there were 20 guys invited. So, like, this isn't a, super exclusive green room invite means you're a lottery pick like it maybe has been several years ago. Now, I was so surprised. I was not expecting that. I thought Johnny would go somewhere early 20s is kind of where my thought was. And I was shocked. And I think Bill Self's statement after, I think, said a lot, right? Where, you don't hear coaches in statements that are written mention promises made to players. And I think to bring that up says that Johnny Furphy's representatives, this is just me projecting here, got a promise from a team that, hey, if you are available at this number, we will take you. And then they didn't follow through on that promise. And that for me is super fascinating to hear from a Hall of Fame head coach who has had players drafted countless times, right, in the lottery, in the first round, right? We could go on and on about it. To have a team do a promise, not back it up, I think Self clearly frustrated by that. And I thought it was really interesting the fact that he brought that up in a written statement from KU.
How do you think he fits in with the Pacers? And then how do you think McCullar's going to fit in the New York Knicks organization?
Man, I think McCullar is like the perfect Thibodeau type of player, right? Gritty, a guy that's really good defensively, offers you some versatility. That's going to fit there in New York. For Johnny, I'm really fascinated because obviously, Pascal Siakam is a great wing in the NBA. He's an all-star. He's going to be one of the best players in the league. There's guys like, Tyrese Halliburton. I think where Johnny can fit in is being a 3-and-D wing off the bench. If we think about what Christian Brown did for the Denver Nuggets, being that guy that can come off the bench, provide energy, some dunks, athleticism. I don't see why Johnny can't be that early in his NBA career while he still develops physically, develops the three-point shooting to be more consistent, and then can be a more well-rounded player that potentially is a starter down the road. I think that kind of role for him early on could really do him really well, where it's 10, 15 minutes a game, nothing too crazy. We're able to get your minutes, get your development time, but also not be thrown into the fire where you're playing 30 minutes and you're not quite ready for it. So I think the fit with Indiana is great. Really excited to see what he does there.
Wrapping up with Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. This is Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. End of last week, the Big 12 basketball opponents were set. KU's got home and homes with UCF, Colorado, Houston, Iowa State, and K-State. Host Arizona, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. Go to Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, TCU, and Utah. Gut reaction, do you think that KU got a pretty decent draw, fair draw? What do you think of the way their schedule is going to shake out?
Yeah, I think it's a positive draw for KU. Look, the Big 12 is going to continue to put KU and Houston playing each other twice a year until one of the programs falls off. They're going to keep going back to that money well, and I think for KU, getting Baylor on the road maybe isn't great. KU's not won in Waco since the 2020 game where Udoka Azubuike went crazy. I think generally, though, you look at it, you're getting to play Colorado twice, UCF twice, I believe. Look, it's a schedule that on paper you'd say, man, it could have been, I think, a lot tougher for KU. So I think it's a little bit different than last year. I think the schedule for KU wasn't exactly the best. And I think the fact that for KU last year, not getting to play some of those top teams twice, didn't help the Jayhawks, and this year they get Houston twice, Iowa State twice. I think those are going to be two of KU's biggest competitors in the Big 12. So I think getting them twice, the ability to have kind of those double jeopardy games, that's going to be really big for KU.
It's the best, most in-depth KU coverage around. Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Become a subscriber and VIP today, and you can always read the work of the great Michael Swain, who joins us Tuesdays here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, always a pleasure. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
That is Michael Swain, and that is going to be a wrap for the 4 o'clock hour here of 580 Sports Talk. Coming up in the final hour of today's show, we'll have our sports headlines. We've been teasing that Ollie Gordon story all day. We'll get there. The Wildcat Classic, K-State basketball. We know who they're going to play at the T-Mobile Center in December. We'll tell you who. Plus some other headlines, including a former Kansas high school and Pitt State star becoming a youngest head football coach in Division I and how that ended up happening. We'll also reset our thoughts on the Big 12 football media poll and get you ready for Royals-Rays Game 1 tonight. That's all coming up in the final hour of the show from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This is 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk. Hour number 4 on this Tuesday edition. I am Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, and Trenton Craxner with me as well. Glad to have you aboard on this edition of the show, whether you're listening on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or on our video stream at YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, WIBW News on Facebook, 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. However you are consuming the show, we're just glad that you are and appreciate you being with us on this Tuesday. We are with you to the bottom of the hour, and then we got overtime until 6:30. Trent's going to have you for overtime, taking you up to the start of coverage of Royals baseball. Royals Baseball Network takes the reins at 6:30, pregame coverage of tonight's series opener. First of 3 at the K against the Tampa Bay Rays. Brady Singer on the bump for KC. Zach Littell for the Rays. Nobody calls them TB, even though that's what's on their cap. Nobody calls Tampa Bay TB. Everybody calls Royals KC, Dodgers LA. Nobody calls the Rays TB. Anyway, Brady Singer, Zach Littell, your pitching matchup again, a 7:10 first pitch, 6:30 pregame here on 580 WIBW, your home for Royals baseball since the inaugural year in 1969. Coming up this hour, we've got a reset of the Big 12 football media poll, the preseason poll released today. K-State second, KU fourth. We got some final thoughts on overrated, underrated, all things in between. And we will preview this Royals-Rays series. Royals, of course, coming in. They're 5-2 so far on this 10-game homestand. 3 more games against a Rays team that has gotten things going in a better direction since a tough start to their season. They've scrapped back to the 500 mark. And they are 1-2 against the Royals this year. Royals taking a series at Tropicana Field back in May. And, of course, it's our 580 Sports Talk headlines. You can interact with the program throughout this final hour. We love to hear from you. Hit us up in the YouTube comments, the live chat. Love the live chat. It's always popping off. You can also send messages if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter. We see those as well. And you can text us. The text line's always open no matter how you're listening to the show. You can hit us on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-9429. We'll go ahead and we'll get into the final hour of the program here. We will start with our first 580 Sports Talk headline. And it is official as of earlier today. We know who the Wildcat Classic opponent for K-State men's basketball is going to be. It will be the Drake Bulldogs, who come to the T-Mobile Center to take on the Cats on Tuesday, December 17th. The 13th Wildcat Classic game at the T-Mobile Center, an event that dates back to 2007. Drake was really good last year. They were so good, their coach got poached by a different Big 12 team. You may recall Drake went 28-7, won the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, made the NCAA tournament, and their coach, Darian DeVries, was hired to take the reins of the West Virginia Mountaineers. And as a result, brought the best players from Drake, well, the best player, his son, to Morgantown with him. So it will be a very different looking Drake team that arrives in Kansas City on December 17th. But if you follow the MIAA, the new coach is an extremely familiar face. Drake's new head coach is Ben McCullum, who guided Northwest Missouri State to 394 wins and 4 Division II national championships, and finally getting his overdue chance to coach a Division I program. K-State and Drake haven't played since 2020. That was the COVID year. That was obviously a rough year for K-State basketball. And one of the earliest signs it was going to be a rough year was the fact that Drake came to Bramlage and beat K-State by 10. That was the last time the two teams met, back on November 25th of 2020 at Bramlage Coliseum. So that's your game in Kansas City, for you Wildcat fans who maybe don't get out to Manhattan for games, but like to pack the T-Mobile Center. Really good crowd last year for the K-State Wichita State game. That was the Wildcat Classic last year. Excellent crowd. I have been to 3 of the last 4, I think. Maybe it's the last 3. Maybe it is the last 3 because obviously they didn't have one in the COVID season of 2020. Now, I guess I didn't go to the 2021 game. So it would be 3 of the last 4 because they played St. Louis, I think, in the 2019-20 season. They played Nebraska in 22. They played Wichita State last year. And I have seen the crowds for this fluctuate appropriately based on the relative enthusiasm for K-State men's basketball. I remember going to the matchup against St. Louis, and a good chunk of the upper deck at the T-Mobile Center was tarped off. And then I went to the Nebraska game, and it was only part of the upper deck that was tarped off. And then I went to the Wichita State one last year, and nothing was tarped off. And that joint was jumping all night long. And I would expect there to be some more excitement for K-State men's basketball this year, and another really good crowd in place at the T-Mobile Center. Drake coming to Kansas City to play the Wildcats in this year's 13th Wildcat Classic. Can't call it 13th annual Wildcat Classic because, again, they didn't play one in the COVID year, so it hasn't been an annual event. They try to make it annual. This will be the 4th year in a row that they've been able to have one since COVID. So,
but look, COVID year doesn't count.
No, nothing.
So it is annual in my book.
That's fair. Fair is fair. Although, like, again, they had the COVID season that was canceled. And then they had like the COVID season, the 2020-2021 season. They didn't have one that year. So, yes, Kansas State and Drake. I think it's going to be that'd be a fun matchup. I think for K-State. And I suspect that there will be a good contingent of Drake fans come down from Des Moines to see that game. And maybe some Northwest Missouri State fans come down to support their former head coach, Ben McCollum. Anyway, that's my first headline. Spencer, what's your first headline?
It's not in there, but I have it. I meant to put it in there earlier. Former Washburn rural. I sound vastly different right there.
It took some practice for me too. Don't feel bad. Washburn rural. Yes.
Washburn rural volleyball star Brooklyn DeLay was named the most valuable player and best spiker of the 2024 NORCECA Women's U21 Continental Championship Tournament on Sunday. DeLay led the U.S. Women's Under-21 team to a gold medal with 25-12, 25-16, and a 25-16 win over Puerto Rico on Sunday in Toronto, Canada. The title win automatically qualifies the U.S. for the 2025 World Championships. DeLay helped the U.S. stay perfect throughout all 5 of their wins of the tournament. And so congratulations to her and the women's under-21 national team. So
yeah, not just named to the team, which was a cool honor in and of itself for the SEC Freshman of the Year, but MVP of the tournament, best spiker in the tournament. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and just goes to show you the kind of athlete we're dealing with here when we talk about Brooklyn DeLay. She is going to be a dominant force in the SEC for Kentucky moving forward, and I would not be surprised. In fact, I would be more surprised if it is the last time that Brooklyn DeLay represents her country on the volleyball court. I would not be surprised if we were talking about a future Olympian here, and that would be an extremely cool honor for the Washburn Rural Star. Good headline to start things off. Next headline for me. We've been teasing it all day. Let's finally get to it.
There you go.
The same day, or not 24 hours before he was named the Big 12's preseason OPOY for Offensive Player of the Year, Oklahoma State star running back Ollie Gordon II got 3 different letters that you don't want to be associated with. That would be DUI, arrested Sunday morning on suspicion of driving under the influence. According to Oklahoma Highway Patrol and their probable cause affidavit, troopers pulled Gordon over in the Oklahoma City area after he swerved his car into the adjacent lane twice and was caught speeding 17 miles per hour over the speed limit of 65. During the stop, a trooper detected the odor of alcohol in the vehicle. Gordon admitted he had an open bottle of vodka and of tequila, which, according to the affidavit, were found half empty. He initially refused a sobriety test, was arrested on complaint of DUI, transport of an open container of alcohol, failed to maintain a single lane traffic, and speeding. At the Cleveland County Jail, Gordon registered a blood alcohol level of 0.11 and 0.10 just above Oklahoma's legal blood alcohol content limit for driving of 0.08. An Oklahoma State spokesperson said the school was aware of the incident. I imagine there will probably be some kind of discipline for Ollie Gordon. I would not expect him to be on the field, maybe at all, when Oklahoma State plays South Dakota State on August 31st. I would expect there to be a suspension. I would expect it to be handed down by the team, and I would expect it to be one game in duration. I don't know if it's going to be a whole lot longer from Mike Gundy, but we'll see. But this is certainly not the way that Gordon or the Cowboys wanted to go into the 2024 campaign. Anytime we talk about DUI, I say the same thing. Anyone can make a mistake, but this is a really bad one to make. And Ollie Gordon is very fortunate that he has lived to not make it again.
And this is why we're fans with a plan.
That's right. That's right. Should have designated a sober driver or ride share from wherever he was coming from, which you can do through the Kansas Drive to Zero program. Visit kansasdrivetozero.com. Great tie-in of our sponsor, Spencer. We love that. And you know what? I bet they love it too. Great tie-in.
You know, why not, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, next headline for me. Mario Chalmers is among how many number?
16.
16 former NCAA players suing the NCAA for NIL use in March Madness promos.
So this is interesting. Mario Chalmers not the only Jayhawk. In fact, when I first read the story, it was just Mario Chalmers. Sharon Collins is also part of this lawsuit.
Yeah.
Jason Terry, former Arizona star and longtime NBA player, another notable name in this lawsuit. And the lawsuit is not only against the NCAA, it's against multiple conferences, the Big East, the Pac-12, the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, and also Turner Sports Interactive.
Wow.
And the lawsuit alleges that the use of the name, image, and likeness in March Madness highlights is unauthorized. The lawsuit says, quote, Mario Chalmers, Sharon Collins, and other members of the 2008 Kansas Jayhawks national championship men's basketball team have been paid nothing by the NCAA or its partner, TSI, Turner Sports Interactive, for the continued use of their names, images, and likenesses in promoting and monetizing March Madness. The same is true for thousands of former NCAA athletes across all sports whose names, images, and likenesses are continuing to be displayed for commercial purposes by the NCAA, its member conferences, and its partners, such as TSI. The lawsuit accused the defendants of systematically and intentionally misappropriating the plaintiff's publicity rights while reaping scores of millions of dollars from plaintiffs and similarly situated class members' participation in competition. So this goes back to last month, where members of the 1983 North Carolina State men's basketball team, who you may remember as winning the national championship in one of the most famous games and famous highlights really in the history of sports, never mind college basketball, they sued the NCAA and the Collegiate Licensing Company for unauthorized use of their name, image, and likeness. So the thought process here, I suppose, when you see a highlight used to promote like an NFL game and it's an old highlight, like it's a Chiefs Raiders promo, and they use like old footage of Marcus Allen or Bo Jackson or whomever, like those rights are protected by like the players union. Like when you sign to be part of the players union, like that, there are stipulations. Even when you are no longer an active player, you're part of the retired players union. There are stipulations that your highlights can still be used.
Or, for instance, as part of the Players Association, you can be on like a Madden Ultimate Team card.
Right. Yeah. You can agree to be part of like a video game if you're a retired player. Like you can be on MLB The Show, or you can be on Madden or whatever it is. So obviously for a very long time, college athletes had no right to anything like this. And we're just now starting to see that particular tide turn when it comes to revenue sharing. And now you have these former athletes saying, hey, you've made millions on us for years. And we'd like some of that back. We would like some of that back. I don't know what will come of this. It's hard to predict what will come of this, but it just, again, goes to show the house of cards that was the amateurism model that the NCAA clung to for years is just crumbling down in every way possible. And the winners in the end are going to be the athletes, the current athletes, the future athletes, and maybe even the former athletes as well are going to come out ahead here. And I don't know what would happen in the instance that, like, I don't know if the Big East is going to have to cut Ryan Boatwright a check because he played at UConn, played in the Big East. Like, I don't know how this will all work, but certainly you've got a group of athletes here who would like to be made right because their name, image, and likeness was used, they are arguing, unlawfully, not just while they were athletes, but also after the end of their playing careers. And the basis for this is, you know, back when you had the lawsuit that essentially ended college sports video games.
Yeah.
It wasn't an active player that started that. It was Ed O'Bannon, the former UCLA basketball player, who happened to notice that the 1995 UCLA team was one of the classic teams on a college basketball video game. And he said, well, wait a second. I'm not getting any money for this. Wait, how is that fair? How can they use, because like power forward 31 is obviously me. It looks like me. It plays like me.
It's as tall as me.
Yeah. But he wasn't an active athlete at the time. So, but he still had standing in court despite not being an active athlete. And I wonder if it goes similarly for the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, which again include a couple of Jayhawk greats, Mario Chalmers and Sharon Collins. Also a couple Mizzou guys, Matt Pressey, Alex Oriaki. But you know how portions of this program feel about
the Top City
Missouri
Metal
Tigers.
Supply text line says we are witnessing the end of all college sports as we know it.
Yeah,
NIL is destroying college football.
NIL is going to destroy college football. Should have never started paying them. Cannot disagree more. Should have been paying them all along. They are employees. Their coaches, their bosses are making millions of dollars,
and they're a product.
They are a product. They are the product. They are what we are paying to see. They are what we are sitting down in front of our television to watch. They are what the networks are paying millions of dollars for. It's not the coaches. It's not the logos. It's the players. The players should have been paid a long time ago. What ruined college football to the extent that it will be ruined is the fact that the NCAA tried and tried and tried to make money off of free labor for years and years and years, instead of breaking off the players. They could have done this sensibly years ago. They chose not to, and now we're here. So let's not blame the players for this because they should have been getting paid all along. And I think the problem here lies with the NCAA. They were slow to act, and now they are obsolete or growing more and more obsolete by the day. Speaking of college football, let's get to a headline here as we continue our headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. The youngest Division I college football coach in the country is a former Hutchinson Salthawk and Pitt State Gorilla. His name is Nate Dreiling, and he is the interim head football coach at Utah State. Why is he the interim football coach? Well, in a statement that the Utah State University released, I don't know if it's the Utah State University. Maybe it should be. Maybe they should go around and say the Utah State University. Yeah. Remember when Ohio State tried to copyright the word the?
Yeah.
Morons.
Yeah, and you can now see the Ohio University is on people's degrees.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Utah State University officials informed head football coach Blake Anderson today of their intent to terminate his employment agreement for actions taken in spring 2023. These actions violated both his employment agreement and university policy. This decision comes after a thorough external review of alleged non-compliance with university policies that implement Title IX, which require full and timely reporting of disclosures of sexual misconduct, including domestic violence, and prohibit employees from investigating disclosures of sexual misconduct themselves. In addition to Anderson, who was placed on leave with the intent to terminate earlier today, the Associate Vice President and Deputy Athletic Director of External Affairs, Jerry Bovee, and the Utah State Football Director of Player Development and Community, Austin Albrecht, have also been dismissed. I don't know if they've been put on leave or if they've just been flat out fired for violations of university policies related to the reporting of sexual assault and domestic violence and failures of professional responsibilities. So the backstory on this, I'm going to go dig this up here. There were, I believe it was 3 sexual assault allegations in the program. Brett McMurphy had the details here, and I got to find his tweet so I make sure that I get this right. Last year, 3 players were arrested for sexual assault, and during the season or during the year for Utah State. And in the course of investigating that, the school found some behavior that was not appropriate, broke rules. And so Blake Anderson, who has been a successful coach in his career, 23-17, 3 seasons at Utah State. He was 51-37 at Arkansas State. He's dealt with a lot of personal tragedy in his life. His wife passed away in 2019 after fighting breast cancer. His son died by suicide in 2022 at age 21. So Blake Anderson's been through a heck of a lot, but clearly did not handle the sexual assaults in his program in an appropriate fashion. So he will no longer be the head football coach at Utah State. Nate Dreiling, well-traveled in his coaching career. He had previously been at New Mexico State under Jerry Kill, another Kansas guy. And he will be the interim head football coach for 2024 at Utah State, making him the youngest power, or not power, but I believe the youngest FCS head coach in the country, Nate Dreiling. Spencer, got next headline?
Yeah, I believe you put this in there. It's filing it under, quote, weird baseball injury. Brandon Nemo hospitalized after a fall in a shower overnight. He missed last night's game against the Nationals. He's a Mets outfielder, if you did not know. He fainted in his hotel room overnight when he hit his head when he fell. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said he cut his forehead and did not have a concussion. He said he woke up not feeling well around 5:15 a.m. He went to the bathroom, cramped up, and fainted. When he came to and got up from the floor, he was bleeding from his head and wasn't sure why. He called the Mets trainers, who went to his room to assist him. He went to the hospital Monday for tests, including a CT scan, but arrived at the ballpark before the game and spoke to reporters with a bandage on his head. He said it was as a precaution, he wouldn't be available to play Monday night, but hoped to be back in the lineup very soon. Can you check, see if he's in the lineup tonight?
I have not seen whether or not he is in tonight's lineup.
That's a weird baseball injury, though.
That is.
Or an injury to a
He
baseball
is
player.
not in the lineup tonight.
Wow.
Against the Nationals. Be Harrison Bader in center field.
Yeah. Game starting here in like 20 minutes.
What's your favorite weird baseball injury? I have 2.
I have a weird basketball injury.
Personally? Or?
No, like when John Wall retore his Achilles. He was walking around his house or something.
My favorite weird baseball injuries that have nothing to do with actually playing the sport. There was a Marlins / Cubs / Expos infielder, Brett Barbary. And he once missed a game because he was cutting a habanero pepper and he accidentally rubbed his eye and it inflamed his eye so bad that he had to miss a game. Also, I think it was Glenn Allen Hill who had a nightmare. Glenn Allen Hill played for a bunch of teams in his career, and he had a nightmare and he fell through a glass table like he was sleepwalking during a nightmare.
Did you see the text line?
Yes, George Brett's hemorrhoids costing him game. He missed World Series games.
What?
Yes, 1980. He missed World Series games because he had, or postseason games. I will say, I'm not looking at it right away. I think it was World Series games. I know it was postseason games.
That's great.
A good text from 785. Yeah, George Brett missed games with hemorrhoids. That's why I don't want those problems. Like, I know what they are. I've never had one. Thank God. If they were enough to make George Brett miss playoff games, that doesn't sound like anything I just want to walk around with.
Yeah, that seems like it's enough for the regular person to like call off work for days.
Yeah, no kidding. A couple more quick hitter headlines while we have a chance. Tashawn Gibson Jr., who spent the past 2 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers, safety, suspended 6 games by the NFL for a violation of the league's performance-enhancing substances policy. He was a starting free safety in 2023 and played a bunch last year, starting 16 games of the 17, but currently not with a team, and I imagine it will be harder to find employment facing down a 6-game suspension for PED use. Also, a couple of quick NBA headlines. Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks is official. The longtime splash brother for the Golden State Warriors is changing teams in a sign and trade. It will be a 3-year, $50 million contract for Thompson with the defending Western Conference champion Mavericks. So Klay Thompson's time in Golden State is done. Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks is done. Unfortunately for the Mavericks, Klay Thompson is also done. Completely cooked as a player. No legs left. It's over for Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
If they think they're getting Splash Brother Klay Thompson, they're going to be deeply disappointed. Also, 2-year contract for relatively unknown rookie Bronny James for the Los Angeles Lakers. I guess he has a famous dad, but he signed a 2-year contract with the Lakers
Guaranteed,
today.
too.
Yeah, 2-year guaranteed contract with the Lakers.
One more basketball one. The Celtics up for sale.
Yes, the Celtics are for sale, which is wild because they've given out like $600 million in contracts to guys who are currently on the team. They're going to be way over that second apron, and they're going to have to pay a tax. And the current owners are like, "Yeah, we don't care. We're not going to be here. We're selling the team." So yeah, they are for sale.
You got to wonder if the old Fenway Sports Group is going to try and buy
That's the rumor, but I've heard there's nothing to that.
Oh.
I've heard that John Henry, Fenway Sports Group, not actually interested in purchasing the Boston.
Well, I don't
Celtics.
know if he could, because you know who's a key investor?
I don't.
LeBron James.
Well, that's true. Yeah, LeBron James does have a piece of. I know he's got a piece of like Liverpool and some of their other holdings.
I don't know if you can own a part of a basketball, or be an investor in a group that's going to own a basketball team when you're a player and on a different basketball.
Yeah, you might have to divest. I mean, like Tom Brady, when they went around, he was going to buy a piece of the Las Vegas Raiders. That put an end to any thought that he was going to play anywhere else.
Yeah.
Own a team and play somewhere else. That's going to do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, we'll reset the Big 12's preseason football media poll. Both Kansas teams in the top 4. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. .535 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Spencer Trenton. Big 12 football preseason media poll came out. We'll run through it 1 through 16 in case you may have missed it earlier today. Utah, the favorite, 20 of the 61 first place votes. K-State right behind, 19 of the first place votes. at number 2. Then number 3, Oklahoma State, 14 first place votes. Kansas, 5 first place votes, ranking 4th. Arizona, 3 first place votes, 5th. Iowa State, West Virginia, UCF round out the top half of the poll. Texas Tech is 9th, TCU 10th, Colorado 11th. Baylor and BYU tied at 12th and 13th. And Cincinnati, Houston, and Arizona State rounding out the top 16. I want to bring in Trenton Kraxner, across the glass, producer engineer. Trenton, you had a chance to weigh in earlier. Is there a team that you feel like is particularly overrated or particularly underrated by the media in this poll?
I would argue to switch Arizona and Oklahoma State.
I would too. I feel the exact same way.
I think BYU might be better than 13th. I think they had a solid roster last year. They dealt with some QB injuries.
Yeah, the thing about BYU, like they know who they are. Like that's a program with an identity, and they know how they have to play, and they know what they have to do, and they're always going to be tough at home because of the altitude. They almost picked off Oklahoma last year. Oklahoma had that 99-yard pick six, flipped that game on its ear, and then they pulled away. But BYU is very close to beating Oklahoma at home. The problem for BYU is their quarterback room stinks. It's really bad. Jerry Bohannon is the favorite to win that starting job.
Wasn't the guy at Baylor?
Yes, that is exactly who you're thinking of. Also played, I think he played at USF last year. He's lousy. Like, he's just not very good. They have the Jake Retzlaff, who started some games last year. They've got transfer from Western Michigan. They've got transfer from Utah State. I think it's a really grim quarterback room. And in a league with so many good quarterbacks, I don't know, looking at their schedule, other than the Arizona State game, because Arizona State's kind of in dire straits at quarterback too. I don't think they're going to have the quarterback edge in a single game they play this year, barring injury, of course. I have a lot of concerns about their quarterback room. I think that's a team that could be really bad if Bohannon doesn't become a player that I don't foresee him becoming.
I would say that's fair.
Anybody else that you think is underrated? Or you said BYU. What about overrated? Who do you think is the most overrated team in this?
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
They didn't look that good against KU last year. Like, I know they had a good record and KU beat them, but like Rocco Beck didn't move the needle for me at all. Like, I wasn't overly impressed. I know he was just a true freshman last year, but I don't think Iowa State's sixth best. I think Texas Tech and West Virginia are probably better than them.
Lot of returning starters on defense for Iowa State, which of course is a big deal. They've got some good players on that defense. The thing about Iowa State is the more you hype them, the more they disappoint. Like, it's inevitable that anytime Iowa State comes into a season with some buzz, they underachieve. And anytime nobody thinks Iowa State's going to be any good, they are. Like last year, I think
they're probably picked last.
I don't know if they were picked last in the preseason poll, but it was probably 8th, 9th, and then, or second or third from the bottom, I should say, because it was a 14-team league last year. I think that their expectations really went in the tank when they lost their starting running back, starting quarterback to the gambling scandal. And then, yeah, they turned out that Rocco Beck was actually pretty good. So good, in fact, that he won Offensive Freshman of the Year in the Big 12, and they overachieved. So they are that program. When nothing is expected of them, that's when you least want to run into Matt Campbell.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's their coach? Because I remember they were talking about firing him early last year because they lost to Ohio to open the year, didn't they?
They
like
lost
10-7.
Yes, they did. They lost to Ohio. They were 1-2, and yeah, it did. It kind of felt like everything it was going to go south, and then they had some quality wins, including beating Kansas State in Manhattan to close the season, and then they made a bowl. They lost their bowl, but they went 7-5, and they had a winning record in the league, and they deserve credit for that. And they do. They return their leading rusher. They return their starting quarterback. They return their top 4 receivers. They return their top 5 tacklers. They return their sack leaders. Like, that is the basis for a contending team in the league. But yeah. I think when you expect Iowa State to contend is when they end up kind of stinky. Although, in fairness, when you expect Iowa State to stink, they go like 7-5. And when you expect Iowa State to be really good, they underwhelm and they end up 7-5.
Right, because remember, like Brock Purdy's senior year, all the talent they had him, Bryce Hall, and they had a really
Brees Hall, yeah.
Yeah, Brees Hall, not Bryce Hall. And then they had a really good tight end who I can't think of. He's in the league.
Charlie Kohler.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were number 7 in the country preseason, and they went 7-5.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not saying they're gonna be bad, but I think
7-6, I should say. They were 7-5 because they lost their bowl. So they did. They go 7-5.
I just think West Virginia and Texas Tech should be ahead of them. I think they're like right in the middle type of team.
I think there'll be a bounce back year for Texas Tech. I think they got bad luck. We talked about the one-score games earlier. I thought they had some bad luck in one-score games last year. I really like Joey McGuire a lot. If Baron Morton is healthy at quarterback, I think they'll take a step forward this year. Certainly possible. But yeah, Iowa State, you'll learn covering the league, Spencer, as we go along here. For Iowa State, all roads lead to 7-5. Just one way or another. 7-5 is Matt Campbell's destiny.
So in football, all roads lead to 7-5, and in basketball, all roads lead to annoying Dan Lucero.
I guess I'm not making any friends in Ames. And you know what? That's fine. That's fine. I'll never go to Ames unless it's by accident or at gunpoint.
You have to tell Trenton about your Twitter wars.
Well, yeah, I made Iowa State fans really mad at me during the Big 12 basketball tournament when I said that I don't like watching them play and I wish them ill. I stand by that. Like,
did you have to take that tweet down?
It wasn't worth it to keep up.
Yeah.
Sometimes
didn't somebody find your email?
Yes, I got a personal email. Somebody found my personal email address. Tell me you didn't like my tweet.
I bring this up because I was next to Dan the whole Big 12 tournament almost. Seeing these
buddy, get a life. I would say to that guy.
I remember when them and
it's Twitter. It's just Twitter, baby. It ain't that serious.
I remember when them and Houston played in Houston. Like it was a big Monday game. They're both like top 7. And just on Twitter, it was like, oh, this is what everyone expects. But then it's like real Big 12 fans. And have you seen that like overseas basketball league where that you can like take your shirt off and just body slam people?
Yes.
Talking about the physicality.
Basket wrestling?
Yeah. It was
whatever it was. Yes. I think I tweeted that.
It was like,
you may have seen me tweet that.
It was like what real Big 12 fans know what's going to happen because it was going to be a bloodbath of physicality.
Yes. I tweeted exactly this. So like,
yeah, you saw Dan Lucero
Russian Greco-Roman wrestling with basketball.
Yeah.
Yes. That's I do. I don't like watching Iowa State play basketball. I don't mind watching them play football. Like stylistically, they don't do anything that annoys me, or they don't have any players that annoy me. I don't hate Matt Campbell. I have nothing bad to say about Matt Campbell. I just know that Iowa State's one good season in the last century was fake because it was a COVID year. That's all I'm saying. And then when you expect good things from Iowa State, they let you down. When you expect bad things from Iowa State, they have their best seasons, which are 7-win seasons.
Yeah, they've never had a 10-win year.
No, never.
Ever.
Never, ever.
Under the creation of football, they've never had a 10-win year.
They couldn't even manage it in the fake year.
Yeah.
Marshall's had a 10-win season, and they haven't.
Well, they won the Division II national championship.
Marshall's had 10-win FBS seasons.
Yes, they have. They've been quite good. Better than that fraud, Matt Campbell. See, now, look what you're making me do. Look what you're making me do about Iowa State football. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll preview game 1 of tonight's Royals-Rays series after this on 580 Sports Talk. We're rounding third, heading for home on this edition of 580 Sports Talk, so it's only appropriate we look ahead to tonight's Royals-Rays affair. Hopefully they stay dry. It's not dry here at our Huntoon Hill studios. So line of storms coming through, and hopefully that does not impact baseball tonight, so you can listen and or watch the Boys in Blue take on the Tampa Bay Rays, first game of a 3-game series tonight. It'll be Brady Singer on the bump for Kansas City, coming off of a strong outing his last time out. Singer faced the Rays earlier this year, back in May, got a no decision, 5 innings, a run on 2 runs, 1 earned on 4 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, 90 pitches, a home run allowed. Like the platonic ideal of a Brady Singer outing. Like that is just the classic 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 base runners, a bunch of pitches. That's just like the average Brady Singer outing. But he was really, really good last time out against Miami, hoping to build off of that. Zach Littell, right-hander, going for the Rays. He's never faced the Royals. He has had back-to-back Singer-esque starts, 5 innings, 2 runs allowed, 1 against Minnesota, 1 against Seattle. Mentioned the Royals took 2 out of 3 from the Rays in Tampa back on May 24th through the 26th. This Rays team is playing better than that Rays team was. They have gone 7-3 in their last 10 games, as Spencer told us earlier, including a series wins over Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Washington. Not exactly murderer's row, but they're getting some important guys really on track offensively, in particular Randy Arozarena. Everybody likes Randy. Who doesn't love old Randy? Randy had a very difficult start to his season, but has been back to menacing pitchers of late. Hit 291 with an 893 OPS in the month of June. The Rays have the ability to mix and match a little bit, and so I'm sure that they want to try and get as many lefties, switch hitters in the lineup against Brady Singer as they possibly can. Singer historically, of course, having his fair share of difficulties with those. Yandy Diaz is going to lead off for them, followed by Brandon Lowe, Isaac Paredes. I'm sorry, Brandon Lau. It's Josh Lowe who hits cleanup. Not related. But Josh Lowe is related to Nathaniel Lowe, who plays for the Rangers. Isaac Paredes hits third, Josh Lowe fourth, Arozarena fifth, Richie Palacios sixth at second base, Jose Siri in center field, Ben Rortvet, the catcher, Taylor Walls at short. That's the lineup for Tampa Bay. Royals go with Maikel Garcia at second base again, then Witt, Pasquantino, Perez, Michael Massey DHing, hitting fifth, Hunter Renfroe sixth in right field, MJ Melendez in left. CJ Alexander back in the lineup, his third big league start. He'll play third base tonight, a left-handed bat in against the right-hander Littell. Kyle Isbell will bat ninth.
CJ Alexander still on the team?
CJ Alexander is still on the team. Yeah, he went 0 for 6 and he got memory hold immediately.
I was going to say, he hasn't played since like last Tuesday when I went to the game. So, like,
yeah,
I'm being completely honest.
Yeah,
they didn't DFA him yet?
I don't think he made an appearance in the.
He pinch ran.
They pinch run in that in the Cleveland series?
Yeah, for Perez in like the bottom of the 8th when it was 10-3.
I do remember that.
He came in and pinch ran for like Pasquantino or Perez in the 8th inning.
Man, did he? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. It says games played 3, and then it says career games played 2 on his ESPN bio page. So, CJ Alexander will get another chance. Root for him to get his first big league hit. That's what I want to see tonight.
Play a little bit of defense, too, because I think I was not impressed with his defense the 2 games he got out there against Miami.
Rooting for, do you think think Singer's got something for the Rays tonight?
Yeah.
I think so.
He's really good at home. Like, outside of the Yankees start who doesn't the Yankees just absolutely crush the baseball against? He's been really good at home this year. So I like Brady's chances to start the series off right.
Should be a good ball game, a good series. Again, pivotal in the wild card chase as Tampa Bay enters today 4 games behind Kansas City for a wild card spot. If you're curious how those standings are shaking out, Baltimore and New York are tied on percentage points. Right now it's Baltimore technically percentage points ahead of the Yankees in the East. So the Yankees have the number 1 wild card spot. Then it's Minnesota, who is 6 games behind New York, 1 game ahead of Kansas City. Royals have a 1.5 game lead on Boston, 3 games up on red hot Houston, 4 games up on Tampa Bay. As we talked about at the very top of the show, 23 games this month for the Royals, 12 of them against last place teams, 12 of them at home, and 6 of them against wild card competitors, Boston and Tampa Bay. Boston to wrap up the segment of the season before the All-Star break. Tampa Bay tonight at home for the next 3 games. Those are the big 6. The 6 most important games of the month for the Royals are the games against the Rays and the Red Sox. Coverage at 6:30 on the Royals Baseball Network. First pitch, 7:10 from Kauffman Stadium. We'll take one final break, come back, wrap things up on this edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. Wrapping up and walking off this edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. Spencer, what do you got for your final word today?
Well, one would say we're not really walking off. We're going to extra innings.
We're going to overtime. Yeah, I don't know why we ended up calling it overtime when it's typically ahead of a Royals game, and extra innings might have been more appropriate, but you know, we weren't thinking about that when we started calling it overtime, when we started doing it. It was some years ago. I don't remember exactly when. But yeah, we just call it overtime, and it stuck, and now we're stuck with it. So
Yeah,
it is what it is. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
it's all good. I was very optimistic back in March, April, end of March, when I said the Royals were going to go 81-81. You guys weren't as optimistic as I was, but I like to say I was optimistic. I wanted to say they were going to have 85 wins, but I was like, I don't want to be too optimistic as the new guy. So I think the Royals are looking good. They continue to stack wins, and if they can, continue to win some series that they need to win, then they're going to be looking good, and they'll even improve past the 81-81 mark that I projected.
Final word for me today. K-State picked to finish second by the media in the Big 12 preseason poll, and the same media didn't name a single Wildcat to the preseason all Big 12 team. And there are lots of different ways you can look at that, but I think the way that I choose to look at it is that Kansas State's ceiling is really high, and it's an acknowledgement of how high the ceiling is for guys like Avery Johnson and Jace Brown and DJ Giddens and some of the transfers that Kansas State has this year, and some of the guys who are going to step into increased roles on the defense this year, like Brandon Mott. I really like the potential for Kansas State. There are a lot of people that believe in Kansas State's ability to rise above their preseason projection, and I am fascinated to see what it looks like in the fall. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk. We do have some overtime up next. We'll be back tomorrow from 2 to 6 from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. For Spencer, for Trenton, I'm Dan. This has been 580 Sports Talk.